Chapter 91 Arrangements for Gan Ning. As soon as he heard that he could do this, Gan Ning was overjoyed and bowed. Xingba will live up to the trust of the county magistrate. Okay, then you remember to send Ji back, anyway, as long as his family has a sea ship. If you can train a navy that can get it within a year, inform me. I'm giving you the second task, otherwise. HMPH. Chen Shi said with a sinister smile. Did you hear that? Yes. Gan Ning replied loudly. Then get ready to go. I'll write you a power of attorney, and I can carry it for you if something happens, but if you don't do it well, I will never care about you. Chen Shi began to write as he spoke, and after writing, he stamped a seal with the seal of the county magistrate, and then wrote a note for the appropriation, with which he could take money from Su Shuang, Zhong Shiping, and Mi Zhu. This is also for you. You can use this thing 3 times, but the first time you can withdraw 20 million yuan, the second time it is only half, the third time it is only half of the second time. If you are not self-sufficient when you withdraw the money for the third time, you will give it back to me. Chen Shi roared while giving the note to Gan Ning. It will live up to the trust of the county magistrate. Gan Ning said loudly. Take the note and go. I still have to deal with things. Chen Shi waved his hand and signaled Gan Ning not to shake in front of his eyes. He still had something to do, and Gan Ning, who got the order, got out of here with a happy face. Zichuan, it won't be a problem to do this. Lu Su smiled bitterly and said, let's not talk about the problem of Izhou Mu, just Sichuan's way of dealing with it is problematic. Even if Gan Ning invests in us now, he can't take it out and use it clearly. Is it useful? Chen Shi rolled his eyes and said, Gan Ning just changed from a Yangtze River pirate to a pirate, and it has anything to do with us. All those who have nothing to do with us are splashing dirty water. In other words, you see that the ship belongs to the Lu family, and the people are pirates, lake bandits, river bandits, and people with us? And have you ever seen that the soldier training is not training in his own territory? Besides, that general has this right? Manager. Do you know what a manager is? You can do anything. Okay, who can issue this right? Chen Shi's words directly blinded Lu Su, vaguely as if he had caught Chen Shi's thoughts. But after all, he was a smart person, and he quickly reacted. Are you saying that you are fooling Xingba? According to Xingba's rectum, if you know that you are fooling him, you don't even have to be a friend? Hey, Zijing. You talk nonsense. Be careful that I sue you for defamation, and I appointed a person to judge. Didn't I give Xingba 20 million yuan of startup capital? There is such a fool. The other party's money has not yet been fooled, and I have already smashed so much into it. I am stupid. Chen Shi rolled his eyes and said, when did I fool Xingba, really? Lu Su was a little dull. After all, this kind of thing was the first time he had experienced it, and after thinking for a while, he finally figured out the whole thing, sighed and said, this way can only survive for a while. When the time comes, if Xingba trains the soldiers, Izhou Mu Liu Gong will recruit, and at that time, Xingba, who holds the navy, we can't let go. It's not as good as now. What support? Even if Izhou Mu wants to recruit Xingba, he must be able to find it, and even if he finds it, Xingba, who is used to being the king of the sea, can go back. And I'm not optimistic about the governor of Izhou. He should be running out of time. Chen Shi shrugged his shoulders and said, of course I also understand what you mean. You mean that the power given to Xingba is too great. Don't worry, that guy will not rebel, and even if we don't give that position, no one can control him. After all, no one understands this now. Instead of laymen commanding insiders, making both sides unhappy, it is better to delegate power directly. Give him the most power. Chen Shi saw Lu Su's hesitant appearance and said, okay, I don't think I would do this kind of thing with other people's wedding dresses according to your wisdom. But what I'm worried about is the problem of other generals, giving Xingba too much power, so it will be difficult to arrange others. Lu Su sighed and agreed with Chen Shi's idea, and instead said other shortcomings. Well, this is a problem, but this power itself should be limited, but there is a saying that it will not be accepted by the foreign king. In this case, we will directly point out this hidden danger. The general who leads the expedition will directly grant arbitrary power, and it will be taken back after returning. Chen Shi looked up at Lu Su and said, this method is also good. Lu Su pondered for a long time and knew the drawbacks, but compared with the sentence that estranged the leading general and the monarch, the benefits of this decentralization obviously outweighed the disadvantages. As for Xingba's desire to train the navy well, it is estimated that it will take a year to barely take it out, and if the other party still wants to recruit Xingba at that time, I will let Xingba do the second thing, saying that I am very interested in the horses in the north, and I also want to weaken some Xianbei and Wuhuan with takeaway. Chen Shi had a smile on his face, but that smile always made Lu Su feel a little cold. Zichuan, can you not smile so coldly? I can't stand it. Lu Su reminded. Ignoring you, by the way, I heard that Gongsun Boisgouet has had a hard time, and there is a shortage of food. You asked people to transfer 3 boats of grain, and then get a boatload of salt to sell to Yu Ju Mu in exchange for money to give to General Gong's son. After all, he helped Xuandagong a lot at the beginning, but he can't be treated lightly. Chen Shi restrained his smile, changed the topic and started talking about other things. Well, I have already handed this matter over to the Mi family, and it won't take long to transport it. Lu Su nodded and said. After the two chatted about some miscellaneous things, Chen Shi began to get distracted again. He had already thought about arranging Gan Ning's affairs. Gan Ning's ability was undeniable, but now there is just a trouble above, and Liu Yang will die in almost 3 years, and it will be good to gather Gan Ning after Liu Zhong takes power. As for the arrangement of these 3 years, Chen Shi has already thought about it. Let Gan Ning train the navy first. If the Qingju people are purely trained into the navy, it is basically impossible in 2 or 3 years. But if the water thief is trained, it will be much less difficult, but the discipline is much worse. But Chen Shi believes that Gan Ning will definitely not live up to his title of chief manager. As for going to fight other states and counties is purely a joke. Chen Shi is just talking. He knows very well that Gan Ning will never do this as long as he is not stupid. But there is no need to ask for instructions to fight bandits or something, and it is estimated that the other party will fight and practice at the same time, and the prisoners are likely to become his navy. After waiting for more than a year to train the navy that can be used, Chen Shi planned to get Gan Ning to Zhou, reorganize the natives there, drive a nail in advance, and let Gan Ning practice his hands, and then use it as a transit station to mix some spices on the surrounding islands or something. Anyway, it is natural to have a bargain in trading without capital. Chapter 92 Zhan Mi. Looking at the information coming from his hand, Chen Shi's eyebrows jumped wildly. Liu Yi and others saw Chen Shi's situation, and they knew that the things passed over would definitely make Chen Shi very unhappy. You all take a look. Chen Shi handed the information from Jizhou to Lu Su and a few others. He was speechless. The good situation could actually be ruined. Zhong Shiping and Su Shuang were two scum. Lu Su smiled after reading it. Wasn't this expected? What's so strange? The Zhen family is a century-old family after all, and it is not so easy to deal with. But it won't be like this. The two fools even smashed their own brands. Chen Shi covered his forehead and said helplessly, My government affairs have been handled, and I will take care of the affairs of Jizhou myself. The Zhen family is really troublesome. Liu Yi didn't say anything. As a royal family, he has a detailed understanding of the families in the world, and the Zhen family is among the best. If you want to shake the foundation of the Zhen family with 1 or 2 businessmen, it is a joke. Even if Chen Shi makes a move, Liu Yi is not very optimistic, but because he has not seen Chen Shi clearly so far, he is not willing to pour cold water on Chen Shi now. Write a letter to Mi Zhu and ask him if he is ready, and I will change the president without me, Chen Shi said with some indignation. Moreover, Zhong Shiping and Su held tens of thousands of stones of refined salt in both hands, and it could almost be said that they were trading without capital, so they did not listen to Mi Zhu's advice, and went directly to Jizhou to fight against the Zhen family. And in Chen Shi's mind, even if they didn't play anything else, just playing dumping was enough to hurt the Zhen family's vitality, so they didn't say anything, and directly let these two guys take tens of thousands of stones of refined salt to Jizhou. At first, the Zhen family did not react, and was caught off guard, and when they came back to their senses, the salt industry had basically been seized by Zhong Shiping and Su Shuang, and the original thing was almost the same in this situation. Especially the Zhen family also came to talk to Zhong Shiping and Su Shuang about buying refined salt at a low price, and they did the next sale, and as a result, the two fools directly mocked the Zhen family. And now even fools know that the person who came is not good. After that, Zhong Su and the two continued to sell salt, and because of the low price, the business was very large, and the shop was very open. From supply to sales directly one stop, and then something happened. It was easy to buy land, there was no card in the whole Jizhou, and when the land was paved, the two were directly sued. The Zhan family sued Zhong and Su with the IOU, and the Taiyuan Wang family, who originally lent them money, did not come forward. The most important thing is that the IOU was real, and it was really signed by Zhong Su and the two. Borrowing more than 100 million yuan, with a monthly interest rate of 5%, the Zhen family wanted to recover the loan on the grounds that the family needed to expand, and it was true that after the 3-month period, the Zhen family should also take it back, and Zhong Su and the two said that they had signed an agreement with the Taiyuan Wang family to extend it for another half a year 2 days ago. As a result, the Zhen family looked joking. There can be paperwork, or a contract. There is a Mao, Zhong Su, and the two were at the time of complacency. If it weren't for the complacent, they wouldn't play this kind of thing. The Taiyuan Wang family and the two also had a lot of communication, and everyone had more than 100 million yuan, and they were all people with status. As businessmen, they naturally had to talk about credit, and it was precisely because of this that they made an agreement verbally. Now the fool knows that he has been played by the Zhen family. What else can be done? But the debt and repayment of the money. It is natural, only the way to pay off the debt, the cost of family assets, all kinds of depreciation, almost demoted Zhong Su and the two to slavery. If it weren't for the Zhen family, They were thrown out of Jizhou after 30 sticks, and Zhongsu and the two, who originally returned home in splendid clothes. Directly, even their names stinked. When Mi Zhu learned the news, his brows furrowed. This teammate was too powerless. He didn't have money to ask him if he could borrow it. 100 million money was really not a problem for him. And besides, he now has a bunch of little brothers. Not to mention 100 million money. 1 billion money can be played. Looking at Chen Shi's plan, Mi Zhu frowned. This murderous aura is too great. What did the Zhen family do to annoy Chen Shi? And it is not enough to compensate for the demotion of all the Zhen family to slavery. But since Chen Shi had already given the order, Mi Zhu couldn't say anything, and began to command the branches in his Chamber of Commerce according to Chen Shi's order. Emaya. Zhen Emai's mother looked at Zhan Mi with a depressed face and shouted, "Why do you look unhappy at all?" "Mother, I'm thinking about the fate of Zhong and Su." Zhen Emai's delicate face carries a touch of worry that cannot be dissolved. Since they provoked the Zhen family, isn't it natural for the Zhen family to give them the ending they want? Zhen Emai's mother said with an arrogant face, "The Zhen family is not prosperous, so now the old lady is in power. The Zhen family doesn't think about what they have done wrong, but just defeats all opponents who dare to provoke him. This is the bane." Zhen Mi said with his eyes closed, as if thinking about that scene, "Don't reflect on your own mistakes, but continue to use your strong strength to defeat the other party. Sooner or later you will be defeated because of the original mistakes, and the Zhen family needs to do this for Zhongsu's family wealth." "You don't understand. If you don't give them the means of thunder, other families will think that I am weak and can be bullied, and then it will not be far from decline." Zhen Emai's mother said with a sneer, and at this moment a servant came over, took a bamboo slip and bowed his head and handed it to Zhen Emai's mother. "You continue to read books. I will manage the family's business. Read books well. You are the hope of the rise of our Zhen family. Be good, Tilda." Zhen Mi didn't speak, just looked at her departing mother blankly. She couldn't figure out why her mother, who had always been willing to listen to her, left in such a hurry. She just felt bored. Is money really that important? Zhen Mi clearly remembers that when she was 4 years old, her father told her that the Zhen family's money could be supported even if it was squandered for several lifetimes. So the Zhen family had gone through a bloody primitive accumulation process, and now what they had to do was to take the grand road, not to forcibly plunder. As long as they did business seriously, no one could defeat the Zhen family. And the heritage of the Zhen family was not something others could imagine. Unfortunately, Zhen Emai's father Zhen Yi died soon after, and the Zhen family naturally fell into the hands of her mother. Unlike her father, Zhen Emai's mother was unwilling to suffer under any circumstances. Especially Liu Liang's sentence that this woman was indescribable, and the state of the world made Zhen Emai's mother full of confidence. Zhen Mi, who gradually grew up, knew very well what effect that sentence had, and knew her mother's plan. She read a lot of books, face-to-face, counting, and I Ching were among them, and she could only sigh in front of the bronze mirror, which was indeed precious. However, when I was watching it not long ago, I found that everything was blurred. What was the world of Feng Yi? What was indescribable? Everything seemed to have been erased casually, as if someone was dissatisfied with the situation in this world, and casually erased the original situation and rearranged it. Chapter 93. Winter is coming, and spring can be tied up. Seeing this situation, Zhen Mi extinguished all his previous fantasies. Everything he saw was just an undetermined future, and someone could erase the original established trajectory, so could the Zhen family still avoid it? Thinking of this kind of thing, Zhen Mi sighed helplessly. As his mother Zhong controlled the Zhen family for a longer and longer time, the traditions left by his father Zhen Yi were less and less, although it seemed that the Zhen family was getting richer and more prosperous. But since seeing the change in the face in the mirror, Zhen Mi had a feeling that the current Zhen family seems to be cooking oil on fire. Flowers are like brocade, although it is beautiful, but it is only the last moment before the decline. Zhen Mi strongly hopes that her mother will change her course and restore the previous system, but unfortunately she is just a canary in the Zhen family, without real power. Although she is smart, although the potential is endless, but the 8-year-old little lowly, harmless things Zhong may listen to, but those things that really determine the direction of the family will never be allowed to be interfered with by Zhen Mi. The fire cooks oil, the flowers are brocade, and the last beauty before destruction. Zhen Mi looked at the sky. Snowflakes slowly fell. The hazy weather seemed to be Zhen Emai's mood at this moment. Who knew that a little lowly had so many thoughts? Chen Shi left the plan to Mi Zhu and didn't care. Anyway, the Zhen family, which had just swallowed the Zhong and Su families, was the same as Zhong Shiping and Su Shuang when they first returned to Zhongshan. It's snowing. Chen Shi, who was standing by the window, looked at the snow flying outside and stretched out his hand to catch a snowflake. I don't know how Zijian is arranged. Winter is coming, and the beginning of spring means that the kidnapping has begun. But don't pay attention to Yu Wu, you don't want money to dazzle or something. Zichuan is still worried about Zijian. Lu Su wrapped in a fur coat and drank ginger tea and said, the bitter children in Jiangnan have never even seen snow, so naturally they can't stand the cold. I'm a little worried that he will bring back some things. Forget it, go with him, the 4,000 infantry in his hands, There is basically no one in the world who can defeat it head-on. It's wrong, Chang'an really has something that can be defeated. Chen-shi was proud at first, and then thought that he had said the wrong thing. Zhou Shun can't be defeated. There are not enough others. How to say that Zijian also has 4,000 people, and they are all orders and prohibitions, facing the blade without changing color, and treating death as home. Zichuan, in fact, I have some experience in military training, but since I saw Wen Zed's military training, I feel that I am much worse, but after seeing Zijian, I feel that it is not bad. Can Zichuan tell me the mystery? Lu Su paused for a long time without speaking, until Chen-shi turned his head to look at him, and then he thought about it and spoke. The method can be told, but the soldiers trained by Zijian can be said to be opportunities that can be encountered but not sought. Chen-shi smiled bitterly and told Lu Su what happened to the whole thing, and also told Lu Su his own speculation, and when he heard Lu Su's eyes lit up, he couldn't wait to try it now. It's so inhumane. Liu Yi raised his head and commented. No one thinks you're dumb if you don't speak. I recently collected a bunch of evidence of your violations of law and discipline, and I have handed it over to Benin. I really want to see you arrested by Benin. Chen-shi turned his head and threatened. Liu Yi stretched his waist without grace. He had already been broken by Chen-shi. Don't you know that there is a Han law called kissing and hiding? Isn't it a crime? Benin said that he hid me when I broke the law, and he was the one who arrested me, and he didn't break the law even if he hid me, so you know. Chen-shi almost sprayed a mouthful of tea on Liu Yi. Can you still play like this? Thinking about it again, there really is this law, and it seems that this is what Shangju did. Zijing, what do you think of this law? Chen-shi turned his head and hinted to Lu Su. Poor Lu Su was wrapped in a fur coat, and Chen-shi's brazier was still shivering from the cold. Where could he take care of Chen-shi's face, but nodded repeatedly and said, this law is very appropriate. The law is nothing more than a favor, and the declaration of the legal system is not in line with people's desires. The legal system, the law enforcer is still a person, and it always falls on one person's rule. Count you as passing. Chen-shi looked at Lu Su speechlessly, turned his head to Liu Yi and said, the day is also short. Why don't we go and have fun? I have a singer at home. Zijing, do you want to go? Liu Yi changed the topic, and he could see that Chen-shi was bored now. The door of the government office was pushed open, a cold wind blew in. Chen-shi couldn't help but shrink his neck. Lu Su directly hugged into a ball, his eyes burst out with ferocious malice as he looked at the person who pushed the door in. Liu Bei, who pushed the door in, naturally saw the strong malice in Lu Su's eyes, but seeing that Lu Su was wrapped in a ball and still couldn't stand the cold, he just smiled and closed the door with his backhand. If Zijing is too cold, let's move the government affairs to my living room, where I lit 3 braziers, which is much better than the empty here. Liu Bei said with a smile. He didn't want his subordinates to be unable to handle government affairs for a little bit of government affairs, and it was not a good habit to fish with all his resources. Thank you, Xuan de Gong, Lu Su said with a shiver. Chen-shi glanced at Lu Su. He knew very well that such a thick leather jacket would not be cold at all, but Lu Su was not used to the climate here, and it would be fine in 2 years. Where is Feng Xiao and Xiao Ji? Liu Bei looked at the empty government hall and asked a little strangely. Feng Xiao said that he took Xiao Ji to experience the suffering of the people. Chen-shi had a strange smile on his face. You just say that they ran away, I won't mind. In fact, I'm surprised that Zichuan is still here. Liu Bei instantly understood what it meant, what kind of experience the suffering of the people, and it was not that he didn't want to do these miscellaneous and trivial government affairs, so he went to drink wine and listen to music. I'm sitting here with something to deal with. I have to count the days. The pit dug by Feng Xiao is too big. Maybe we have to prepare early. Chen-shi sighed and said, the conspiracy are crumpled into a ball and left in Qingju. The yellow turban has to jump if it doesn't jump. The grain is always a trouble. The grain purchased by the Lu family has not yet come up. The Mi family is still suppressing the Zhen family, and it can't be freed. At the end of March, Feng Xiao's hook can catch a group of fish, but I'm afraid we will be held to death. Another person pushed the door in. Yo, Zijing is still so afraid of the cold. In the meantime, the door is not closed. I have seen the Lord. Feng Xiao, close the door for me. Lu Su shuddered even more outrageously, completely ignoring his demeanor. Really, I heard people say that you have to face more of what you are afraid of, so that you can overcome it. Guo Jiao grabbed Fa Zheng, and then muttered. It was obvious that Fa Zheng was a little dizzy now. Chapter 94. A better tomorrow is beckoning. As soon as Fa Zheng approached Chen-shi, he smelled a smell of gouache, and even whether his face had been cleaned, he was immediately shocked. Hey, Feng Xiao, don't go too far. Xiao Ji is still young. You can't bear it if you are so careful. Chen-shi raised his eyebrows and said with an unhappy face, don't make Fa Zheng a swinger. This is the top student in the town of Taishan College he is building. if he is abolished by Guizhou, it will be a tragedy. He is still waiting for Fa Zheng to pang tong those elementary school students. Fa Zheng was still in a state of confusion. The whole person looked almost like a waste. Guizhou said with a hippie smile, "Lord and forgive Xiaoji for being rude, he is immersed in thinking." Liu Bei smiled, didn't care about this kind of trivial matter. Jian Yong and him could take off their shoes while reaching out to grab meat when they were eating. What is this kind of thing? Hey, Xiaoji was taken by me. Guizhou had a smile on his face, everyone understood, so he didn't say anything, including Chen Shi occasionally. After all, traditional and simple can only be seen and not eaten, and the family doesn't want to raise other women, so it can only be like this. As a result, Xiaoji is actually the first brother. Guizhou looked surprised. If he doesn't go, I will drag him there, but the resistance is a little strong, and in the end it was my chief guard Wan Yuliang who helped drag him up. I should say that you have a guard on your head. What is this habit? Or do you force a good person to be a prostitute? Don't you know that it's wrong for others to look at you like that? Chen Shi stretched out his hand to cover his face, feeling that Guizhou's integrity was really a little less. You say that, it seems yes, they look at me so strangely. Guizhou seemed to react suddenly. Liu Yi felt that his skin was twitching, and Lu Su was wrapped in a leather jacket and trembled continuously, not knowing whether it was cold or smiling. I think I want to rectify the rule of officials. Liu Bei felt the blood vessels on his forehead jumping, and these two guys made a mess of their Mount Tai atmosphere. Benin. Come see me quickly. Click. The door of the government office was pushed open again, and a black-faced scribe dressed in black, with a fairly black impermanence walked in. I have seen the Lord, colleagues. Check me how many problems Feng Xiao has made during his time back. Liu Bei turned his head and asked. Originally, Liu Bei planned to scare Guizhou, and he also estimated that Man Chong would not have anything to do to collect these things, and at most he would talk about it in general. But as a result, Man Chong belonged to the typical black-faced judge, and Guizhou's question came when he opened his mouth. After hearing this, Liu Bei himself was frightened. Guizhou came back for 35 days, was late and left early 36 times, and the government repaid the ** debt 8 times. And then think about it, when Zhao Yun and others came back from Qingzhou, it seemed that they did not see Guizhou and Fa Zheng, and from that time on, it was counted, that is to say, they didn't come all for a day. And they actually overlord prostitution? The veteran guard he chose, Wan Yuliang, was mainly used to block the road and let Guizhou run away. Feng Xiao, can Bo Ning have any deliberate slanderous words? Liu Bei still admires Guizhou very much. His ability is very powerful, and his action is also very good. Why did it become like this for a while? So he was a little entangled in his heart, he couldn't say a few words, and he didn't show mercy at all. Nothing. Guizhou said solemnly. Liu Bei has understood for a period of time that Man Chong is indeed a judicial master, and he is also an iron-faced judge, merciless. Naturally he will not slander others. Liu Bei asked this question just to give Guizhou a step. A ha can pass. Which of these people here doesn't know what kind of goods you are? And the habitual criminals who are late and leave early like you also go to Yangliu Lane are still sitting in the position of the county magistrate drinking tea? It's so solemn. How can I shirk it for you? Chen Shi knew that this situation was not good. Guizhou was ready to do this before he was ready. Shouldn't he admit his mistake now? Do Feng Xiao defend? Now he still needs to defend himself. But at this time, Guizhou naturally couldn't be kicked away, so he could only act according to the script. Zhuandegang should take a look at Feng Xiao's government affairs first. Saying that, Chen Shi handed Liu Bei more than a dozen documents. Liu Bei now wishes someone to hand over a step. In addition to the army, the entire Taishan government affairs hall is full of favors, others. You see the situation of Lu Su wrapped in a ball. It would be strange if he could come normally. And Liu Bei heard clearly before entering the door. This group of guys who had completed government affairs were preparing to form a group to skip work to listen to music, eat something, and be warm. This kind of thing is very appropriate in Liu Bei's opinion. The government affairs have been done, and it is indeed a bit inhumane to sit here and be frozen. Without looking at him, Liu Bei plans to move the government affairs hall to his living room, and it doesn't take long for him to deal with government affairs and become a singer dancing. Liu Bei took over Guizhou's government affairs, nodded while flipping through them. Although Guizhou is a little unreliable, but his ability still needs to be recognized. Turning to the last one, Liu Bei was stunned, looked Guizhou up and down, sighed and handed the document to Man Chong. Benning, how do you look at this method? Zichuan, you can also take a look. This is your strength. After Chen Shi took the document and read it quickly, he knew that today's matter was directed and acted by Guizhou, and when he talked to Guizhou at that time, Guizhou might have been ready to start, but he was there, which was equivalent to a double insurance. This method is very suitable for us. After all, now the planning of Taishan and others has been done next year under boredom. But the political strategy is not a temporary plan, It must be combined with reality. We may not be able to use it next year. Chen Shi thought about it and said, he had long wanted to skip work. The damn law stipulates that he has to sit for such a long time every day, and he is still secretly harmed. In fact, Chen Shi has long wanted to tell Liu Bei not to lock officials in the government office. There are not so many things every day. Lu Su, Liu Yi and these people don't talk about governing a county. Even if they govern a state, there will be no big mistakes. Locked in the government hall is actually idle. It is better to let them out. Understand the real environment may find more problems. But I didn't wait for the opportunity, and as a result, the weather became colder and colder, and Chen Shi's depression accumulated more and more, and finally broke out, ready to join forces with Guo Jiao to instill this idea in Liu Bei. It is best to legislate directly, as long as the officials can deal with the political affairs of the day and set a time for themselves. As a result, Chen Shi hadn't broken out yet. Guo Jiao had already done this. For this, of course, Chen Shi had to raise his hands and feet to agree. He didn't see that he was kicking Lu Su under his feet now, and his eyes were signaling Liu Yi, so he almost said that if he wanted a better life in the future, he would fight for it now. Liu Bei smiled dumbly. He wanted to skip work and find such a formal reason. But think about it, there are still Sun Qian who has not appeared. Jian Yong is not an ordinary talent. It can be said that governing a county, any of these people can do it, and those present can also do it, and even govern the country. And now Chen Shi, who is positively hopeful, can also play around. If you don't want to come on time, just say it. There is no need for this. I agree. After Liu Bei was deliberately silent for a long time, his face turned from cloudy to sunny, and he said with a smile on his face, "But it's only you, and you must finish handling government affairs." "Thank you, Lord, Xuan Dagong, clan brother. Tilda brush a piece, including the full favor, the judiciary of a county. He. When this master was at his peak in history, he played the judiciary of 10 states, and a county was tired of playing. Chapter 95 Gain the trust of the people. After having such a guarantee, Chen Shi was about to laugh happily. He only made plans, and the actual operation was all filled by his hands, and the most powerful subordinate was the county magistrate Lu Su, who could help with anything. He had already made the plan next fall, and he could take a long vacation. Looking at your happy expressions, probably the government affairs are done. Let's go. I have mutton tofu that has just come out of the pot. Eat some warmth. Liu Bei said with a smile on his face. He didn't care about Guo Jiao's previous behavior, and directly revealed it. Xuan Dagong is wrong. It's not done, but even the whole year of this year. Lu Su stood up and said heartily with 2 shakes, but his voice was obviously a little trembling. Liu Bei was directly frightened, turned his head to look at Liu Yi and Lu Su, and found that they were all staring at Chen Shi with a solemn face, which means that the benevolent brother standing in the middle now has really finished a whole year of government affairs. Ahem, why are you looking at me like this? Chen Shi coughed twice and found that everyone was unresponsive, and immediately said with a domineering face, "Go around, go eat meat, the mutton tofu that just came out of the pot, delicious and refreshing. I'll leave first." Tofu in the Western Han Dynasty has it, but the quality slag. Now Chen Shi eats this kind of improved. Anyway, there are many Chinese. As long as you are willing to invest, there will always be someone who can improve what you want, even if it is innovative, as long as it is not too much beyond reality. As long as you are willing to invest, there are people under you, you can naturally do it. As for Chen Shi, he is now too lazy to ask for help from craftsmen. His things are very mixed, and it is not easy to find craftsmen, so he has learned to be smart. As a county governor, he only needs to issue orders, get a notice and post it. Naturally someone can do it, and if he gets it, he can directly reward according to the product. Of course, at first, Lu Su was still preventing this shameful thing from happening. But later Chen Shi ignored Lu Su, and then issued a notice under the slogan of establishing the credibility of the government. Who dared to stop it? After that, Chen Shi began to send notices every now and then, and at first others didn't trust this kind of obvious notice of eating, drinking, and having fun. But when someone completed it and got the money, they had to believe it even if they didn't believe it. As Chen Shi said, the establishment of the credibility of the government has really been successful, and now for the government's notice, the way the people of Taishan deal with it, don't care how ridiculous it is, what is written on the notice is what. Properly win the trust of the people. Seeing this effect, Lu Su didn't know what expression to use to look at Chen Shi. His eyes were always a little helpless and strange, and he wanted to open Chen Shi's brain to see what was inside. Why hasn't anyone thought of such a simple method before? Lu Su asked Chen Shi, and Chen Shi said that this kind of thing has been done a long time ago, and Xiong did it very early. But history records that there must be brave men under heavy rewards, rather than winning the trust of the people. But in terms of practical effect, this is to win the trust of the people, and he just did the same thing. Chen Shi, who has developed a habit, already has a certain habit of sending out notices indiscriminately. But fortunately, no matter what kind of notice it is, it can only be sent out through Chen Shi's hand, so no one believes in notices that are not stamped. The content of Chen Shi's recent notice is that people go to Yuju to pick some ginseng and come back. In this era, ginseng seems to be still the price of cabbage, not even the price of radish. After all, radishes at this time are still rare. Ginseng is still at the level of wild vegetables. Therefore, Chen-shi is under the banner of making extra money for the people of Taishan. Let them find a place to dig ginseng. Wet goods can be a single plant over a pound. Chen-shi feels that he is a little thick-skinned, but he is still happy to do it. What wild ginseng, in this era, you find a self-planted is the ability. However, the number of people who came over was a bit large, and even the people felt sorry for Chen-shi when they looked at it, and they were transported to Chen-shi bag by bag, and it was obvious that you couldn't finish eating them as dishes, but Chen-shi still accepted them all. He doesn't use it now. When he saw Hua Tuo in the future, he asked him to study it carefully, like this kind of weed that ate nosebleeds, although Shunnong Baikao Jing said that it was medicine, but I had never seen how many people would use it. Well, this is always a good thing for the benefit of the people, but in order to avoid fishing for the sake of exhaustion, Chen-shi has stopped accepting it. For this reason, many Taishan people beat their chests and feet during their leisure time, all of which are money. Cabbage leaves, boiled tofu and mutton. It sounds good. At least Lu Su has moved forward quickly, and it will be warm after eating. As for Chen-shi, he probably just drank some soup. He wanted to eat beef, but if he wanted to say it, it would be a little embarrassing. Not that he couldn't afford to kill it, but it was unnecessary. Wait until Zhong Shiping and Su Shuang, the two unlucky guys, brought back the cattle and sheep in Beidi. It is said that although Zhong Shiping and Su Shuang were pitted to death for a while, Liu Bei did not abandon them, but comforted Zhong Su and the two of them, and then pointed out the fork of the Zhen family and pointed it to the point. Then Liu Bei said that the money is gone. Nothing. We don't do business in Jizhou. We still have salt. Let's go to Beidi to sell. Sooner or later let the Zhen family take advantage of it and return it with interest. As for the wives, concubines, servants, etc. The Zhen family can be regarded as leaving a face, but the so-called trees fall and scatter. Naturally not many people follow. Zhong Su, who was originally uneasy, saw Liu Bei so generous, and immediately burst into tears, and all the grievances in their bellies were vented, and they swore that they would live up to Liu Bei in this life, and hoped that Liu Bei could accept them as retainers, and was willing to fight for Liu Bei in this life. After all, these two people were the first wealthy merchants to fund them, and now they have reached this point, and there are some reasons for him in it. It is natural to reach out to help. It is not impossible to accept them as retainers, but they can't get by, so they still give up, and give them enough funds to make a comeback and refine salt of the same value, so they are allowed to do what they do best, selling cattle, sheep and horses in the north. Naturally, Zhong Shiping and Su Shuang were grateful for 1,000 kindnesses, and then took the new caravan to the north. These people were strong because of their connections in the north, although they were defeated last time, but this time they used money to open the way, coupled with repaying the favor, naturally did their best, and soon gathered a group of cattle and horses, and now they are probably still in Bingju in circles to rush to the direction of Mount Tai, thinking that it is really not easy to transport so many cattle and horses back, and sure enough, there is specialization in the line. After Liu Bei pushed open the door of his living room, he found that it was a mess inside. Guan Yu was gnawing on a leg of lamb, Zhong Fei was fighting with Tai Shizhi, Zhao Yun was extremely personable and cut the mutton into strips and put them on a plate dipped in sauce and Jian Yong to share. A pot of boiled mutton has basically been eaten by several people. Well, there are only a few cabbage leaves left in the pot. A cold wind blows. Lu Su feels even colder. What about his warm-up sheep soup? Chapter 96 Chen-shi's calculation. Since the autumn grain harvest and Chen-shi's plan to invade Qingju began, Guan and Zhong have been on the border of Qingju and Taishan, either gathering refugees, or clearing the yellow turbans, or helping Zhao Yun reclaim Qingju. In short, Guan Yu and Zhong Fei have been very busy. The two of them with their few cavalry on the edge of Qingju constantly stirred up the yellow turbans, relying on the cavalry that was superior to the speed of the infantry to repeatedly evade the strangulation of the yellow turbans. And then when Guo Jiafar arrived in Qingju, in addition to stirring up the yellow turbans and weakening the strength of the other party, more to lure the other party to attack, and then turn the yellow turban thieves into strong refugees, and finally continue to increase the intensity of reclamation. Of course, Guan Yu and Zhong Fei are not at ease at all about this kind of thing. After all, unruly characters are indispensable in the yellow turban bandits, and if they are incorporated into the team of reclamation, the whole team will be wilted by the other party. However, for this kind of idea, after Guo Jiao said his own considerations, Guan Yu and Zhong Fei compared the losses and subsequent benefits, and then decided to compile according to Guo Jiao's arrangement, at most to strengthen management, and when the yellow turbans were cleaned up, these wilted characters naturally couldn't jump up, and now those people still need to exist. After the arrival of winter in November, Guanzhong and Zhao each packed their belongings and returned to Fengao, but unlike Guanzhong who only needed to take care of his troops when he came back, Zhao Yun began the second job after returning. The matter of taking care of widows that Chen Shi and Lu Su had discussed before naturally fell on Zhao Yun, and only he was close enough to the people, plus he was the only one who ran all over the entire Taishan County. Zhao Yun went to the stepping point first, and then when Liu Bei went again before Chinese New Year's Eve, he didn't have to run around. Of course, those are all superficial tasks. In fact, the arrangements for Zhao Yun are mainly to investigate the population of Taishan County, to prepare for the infiltration of other princes in the coming year, and to calculate the potential of Taishan County soldiers, and to calculate under what circumstances not to hurt the people's strength and silently swallow Qingju. And now in less than a month, Zhao Yun has returned to Mount Tai, wanting to come to Guan Yu. Zhong Fei, Tai Shizi, and others are also to come to Liu Bei's house to pick up the wind for Zhao Yun, ready to have a banquet, not wanting to have cooked food early, just start eating. How to say that the righteous brother is also the master. I've seen my lord. After Liu Bei pushed the door in, all the military generals and civil officials who were eating and drinking threw away the things in their hands, got up and bowed to Liu Bei. Excuse me, I don't want Zilong to have turned back to Fengao so quickly. Liu Bei bowed in return can be regarded as a recognition of the hard work of many generals and civil servants for half a year, and then straightened up and looked at everyone and said, "Today, whether it is the monarch or the minister, let me get drunk. Night shines on the Jade Lion. How can I not be happy? I want one too." Zhong Fei muttered softly, but the loud voice made the voice clearly transmitted to everyone's ears. BMW wine will be available sooner or later. Jizhou, Bingju, Liangju all have good horses, countless wild horses in the north. Red rabbits have been injured, and they are afraid that there will be no good horses in the north. The third brother is too anxious. Chen Shi said with a smile on his face. When I have a BMW, I must have a black one. Zhong Fei took a bite of the lamb leg meat, and I must go head-to-head with Lu Biyu a few more times. Saying that, Zhong Fei seemed to see that situation, and waved his fist excitedly. Second master, do you have any ambitions? Chen Shi had nothing to say about Zhong Fei's rectum. Probably even if Lu Biyu died, Zhong Fei would be melancholic why he didn't stab him a few more times while Lu Biyu was alive, and then sullen. Guangfu Han Room. Guan Yu spat out a few words majestically to end the conversation with Chen Shi, and his habits had not changed. The banquet that was previously messed up by Zhong Fei and others was withdrawn, and it was rearranged. Fortunately, Liu Bei's family had a lot of servants, and there were many cooks, and when Liu Bei sent someone to recruit Zong Bie, who was frozen outside, the banquet had been rearranged. There were braziers burning around the living room, of course. There were 4 of them behind Lu Su, looking at the guy's sweaty and enthusiastic expression. Chen Shi felt a kind of weirdness. Should the temperature rise? Lu Su's guy had already begun to get excited. Looking at the situation was really possible, silently pulling away a little distance. The cups were staggered. Liu Bei gave wine one by one. Everyone was satisfied. Naturally it was inevitable to talk about Hua Xiong, who was still blowing the wind in Yongju, and Gan Ning, who was training the navy in the sea. These 2 unlucky guys are probably having a hard time now. You must know that the place in Yongju is much colder than Mount Tai, and the wind in the sea is also much stronger than Mount Tai. Maybe these 2 are still in tragedy. Chen Shi knows a thing or two about the situation of these 2 guys. Hua Xiong has now become the largest bandit leader in Yongju, not robbing the people, only playing black and eating black. The first time he did this, he was also beaten by other bandits, saying that he had exceeded the rules, and then the bandits who said this were also hacked. Naturally, Hua Xiong, who did this, was attacked by a group, and 30,000 or 20,000 bandits gathered to prepare to kill Hua Xiong's bandit army. But they did not want to be easily defeated by Hua Xiong, and then the entire Yongju bandits of Yongliang Huaxiong became famous, and even Li Yu came to recruit Hua Xiong, but was rejected by Hua Xiong. After that, it was simple. The rules were written by the strong. Hua Xiong said that the bandits on the border of Yongju needed to pay him a protection fee, which was handed to him by Chen Shi, and if the bandits who paid the protection fee were to be protected by other bandits, or the army attacked the Yongju bandits, they were willing to provide them with protection, and if they were unwilling to pay, there would be no way, and if they were suddenly beaten, then there would be nothing to do with him. There are always thorns in the world. Hua Xiong naturally has the goal of establishing power, and killed those bandit groups by thunderous means, and now the entire Yongju bandit group has been turned into sheep by Hua Xiong, with 30,000 to 50,000 bandit troops. Hua Xiong said that he can get Emperor Xian back to Mount Tai according to Chen Shi's request. Of course, this is to say, the reason why Chen Shi brought enough manpower to Hua Xiong at that time was to recover the bandits in Yongju. After all, Hua Xiong needed a place to settle down, get Joshu and Liaoyu out before Dongzhuo's death, and then wait for Lu Biyu to kill Dongzhuo, and after Emperor Xian took power, Hua Xiong personally went to present gifts, and then arrogantly said the situation after that, and invited Emperor Xian to move to Mount Tai. Of course, absolutely no one will agree at this time. Wang Yun and Lu Biyu, who are full of confidence, will not believe it, which means that as soon as Hua Xiong leaves grain and grass, he can turn back to Mount Tai. When Li Ji and Guo Sai threatened Chang'an, Hua Xiong could use the bandit army to rush and kill for a while, saying that he had done his best for the Han dynasty, and then retreated helplessly, as for this point is very easy to explain. Liu Biyu was defeated, can he not be defeated? In this way, when the Han Emperor fled in a few years, Liu Bei and Cao Cao came to greet him. The great loyalists of the Han dynasty naturally couldn't pull their faces down to go to Mount Tai, whether Qianliu was the center of the world, or Mount Tai was remote, not prosperous enough, and it was difficult to inherit the Han dynasty's foundation or something, and then mixed an imperial uncle and sent you back with some official titles. In short, the emperor's uncle Liu Bei did his best, and then you didn't come, went to Cao Cao, and then proved that you were blind, as simple as that, and then under the banner of the Han clan relatives, playing Shen Xing died inside, Chong'e was safe outside. What a good situation. The biggest Han flag naturally fell on Liu Bei's head, and the road in the future would be better. Chapter 97 Thoughts. Of course, this plan is not absolutely smooth. If Liu Xie is amazingly courageous and arbitrary, it is very likely that he will come to Mount Tai, but unfortunately Liu Xie is smart, but the courage is not enough. If the courage is majestic and resourceful, Chen Shi does not mind Liu Xie coming to restore the Han dynasty once. Of course, if Liu Bei wants to make Liu Bei submit after Liu Bei conquered several states, it is unlikely that he will be able to submit. As far as now, except for Yuan and Dong Zhuo, there are still few people in the family who are truly anti-Han. Of course, Sun Ce is negligible because of his youth and vigor, and in general, these three families in this era are gradually awakening with the expansion of territory and ambition, and there is no way that the imperial power will decline, and loyalty will also deteriorate. After all, as long as it is still loyal, it means that the interests are not big enough, and when the interests are big enough, the loyalty will deteriorate. For Chen Shi, it doesn't make much difference whether Liu Bei reaches the top or not. The kind of courage he wants to rule the world, the kind of courage to seek defeat alone, and the kind of courage that even if the majesty of the Han family is 3 parts of the world, it is still pressed by all directions. So it doesn't matter who is the emperor, even if Cao Mengde ascends to the throne, it will not have much impact on Chen Shi, as long as you can beat the 4 directions and bow down, as long as you can let the Han people go out of the border with their heads held high, and the 4 barbarians look up, as long as you can slaughter the other party's king in front of the courtiers of other countries in other countries. The other party still has nothing to say, can only send them back to China. Chen Shi absolutely doesn't mind you taking the throne of God, because his goal is so. The beauty of the country does not account for much in Chen Shi's thinking, because his goal is too ambitious. In the last life when he was alive, he could only look back on the past, maybe 5,000 years, more than 4,000 years are standing at the peak of history, but now he is looking up to others. He said that today's people are far superior to the ancients, but they don't want the ancients to stand at the top of the world, and today's people can only recall the past on the mountainside. What is surpassed? Every time I think of this, Chen Shi is smiling bitterly. There was no opportunity to create history at that time, so he must break the entire history in another direction in this era. Nomadic civilization is equivalent to bandit civilization, basically equivalent to scum. Chen Shi is already trying to find a way to pinch the nomadic civilization from the root. As for the problem of the agricultural civilization itself, Chen Shi can only move towards the 100 schools of thought in the spring and autumn and warring states periods. In other words, only that era can support a civilization that has lasted for thousands of years and create a heavy heritage of civilization. However, referring to the danger of that era, Chen Shi directly wanted to extinguish this idea, but after Chen Shi referred to various situations, he was sure that it was impossible to solve this problem with his IQ. When there is no choice, there is a road to go is the best way, whether he is dangerous or not. If the history of China breaks out twice, God knows how many years it will take for other civilizations to catch up. Holding that something happened is the bad luck of future generations. If you do a good job, you may be able to be like the Prime Minister. Think about it. Chen Shi thinks it's still done. Anyway, in Chen Shi's opinion, no matter how unlucky it will not be more unlucky than the history after that. Try to come, for the big dream of struggle. Think that you may be able to create a prosperous civilization. Chen Shi feels that his soul is trembling. His thinking speed has soared greatly, and he is naturally motivated when he has ideals. Anyway, Chen Shi has already thought about it. Instead of suffering another loss in the future, it is better to try to extinguish those guys by himself. After all, he can be regarded as having some research on those things. At most he has lost the opportunity to get the stimulation of other civilizations, and Chen Shi is not worried about this. These things Chen Shi has always been buried deep in his heart. What dominates the world, what beauty in the country. For Chen Shi is not so attractive. There may indeed be beauties who can make Chen Shi tempted, but there may never be one that can make Chen Shi's heart beat. When he calmly accepted Chen Lan's love, Chen Shi noticed that his temperament was much more indifferent, or not because of indifference, but because he was bearish. He just wanted to find 1 or 2 people to live his life. As for who it was, it didn't matter who it was. Chen Shi sometimes thinks about whether he thinks about those messy things every day, just to not think about the things he really wants to think about. Zichuan. Chen Shi shook his head, and the helplessness on his face turned into a flat smile again, and he raised his glass to everyone from a distance, which was a toast to everyone, and it was also a way to hide his look. What is Zichuan thinking? I see that you just had a deep thought. Liu Bei drank all the wine in the glass, and then said to himself, I'm afraid I miss my wife at home, but I've heard that Zichuan spoils his wife very much. After saying that, Liu Bei burst into laughter. I just remembered some things from the past, but it can be regarded as a matter of wives and concubines. Chen Shi smiled and did not refute, admitted directly, anyway, no one joked, the fireworks willow alley that had never been there before, now don't you go with Guizhou more often? Zichuan and the Fan family girl haven't been officially married yet, right? Liu Bei seemed to remember something. Do you want me to be your matchmaker? Chen Shi thought for a moment and said, it's better to wait a year, wait until Jenna is 16 years old and officially married, so don't worry so much now. In Liu Bei's view, Chen Shi just didn't want to get married in winter. Since Chen Shi was unwilling, Liu Bei couldn't insist, so he just said with a smile, then when the Fan family girl is 16 years old, I'm a matchmaker for Zichuan, but with Zichuan's current position, I can marry a concubine first. How? I think that Chen Lan and you share hardships, and the appearance is not bad, and it is not bad to be a concubine. Zichuan has ideas. Chen Shi was speechless. Liu Bei looked a little too excited, and began to be a matchmaker for him, saying that Liu Bei didn't seem to have a wife. I heard that Guan Yu had a wife but he hadn't seen it at all. As for Zhong Fei, if I remember correctly, his wife Xiahoshu is only 4 or 5 years old now. Think about it, it seems that Zhong Fei and his mother-in-law are not as old as Zhong Fei. It's really scary. Just as he wanted to refuse to marry a concubine, Chen Shi's figure flashed in his mind, and then he thought that Liu Bei was also kind, so he nodded and said, okay, it's almost the new year anyway. Marrying Chen Lan also saves her always living in the backyard, and I can rest assured that I live in the inner courtyard with me. When everyone heard this, they were stunned for a moment, and then there were congratulations one after another. Chen Shi glanced at everyone, and as a result, he had a feeling of fighting a local tyrant. It seemed that he could receive a lot of gifts once he got married, especially he was still a county governor of 2,000 stones, and he could slaughter a lot of people no matter what. Chapter 98 The Situation in All Directions. Marrying a wife is very cumbersome, and marrying a concubine is much simpler. Just look through the yellow calendar to find a good time. After all, wife and concubine were completely two concepts at that time. The date is okay, the 8th day of May. There is nothing to say about the reason why this day was chosen. After all, according to Chen Shi's identity, don't think about speed, unless you don't plan to be in line with etiquette, but it is obvious that this is impossible. Things that violate the universal rules are not something that Chen Shi will do unless it is a last resort. The speed of government affairs processing is getting faster and faster, and the soldiers of Taishan have not stopped training until now, and they will try to give it a try next year, although the plan is scheduled for the year after next. But with the variable of Guofengxiao, Chen Shi is really hard to say. Coupled with a series of chaotic battles next year, Chen Shi also has to prepare more. Zilong, are you sure we have a population of 860,000 now? Chen Shi was shocked when he looked at the number of people that Zhao Yun had thoroughly checked, and unknowingly Taishan had become one of the top 10 most populous counties in the Han Dynasty. Although it was far inferior to Nanyang County, Runan County, and Chen State, but it could be regarded as one of the largest counties. Don't make a mistake. I ran over township by township, Zhao Yun said with a smile, persuading Chen Shi with facts. Well, there will be no problems in raising 50,000 soldiers in this way in the short term. Chen Shi breathed a sigh of relief. As long as the hand speed was fast enough, 50,000 soldiers would get rid of the invading yellow turbans in a month, and it was estimated that there would be no big problem. To be honest, Chen Shi is very envious of Yuan Shu's prodigal son. If Liu Bei has the power of Yuan Shu, where is there a need for such picky calculations? Nanyang County has a population of 2.4 million, Runan County has 2.1 million, Chen State has 1.5 million, and the rest of Yuzhou has a population of 1 million to say the least. So many people swallow 1 or 2 million yellow turbans really don't need to take a breath, so Chen Shi is really envious and jealous of Yuan Shu. Do we really have to take action against Qingju next year? Well, judging from the intelligence from the north, Gongsun Boaguei and Yuan Benchu are preparing for a battle, and it is estimated that the two sides will clash as soon as the climate warms up in the spring of next year, and Yuan Benchu will be the primary target in the north once he frees up. Chen Shi crossed his fingers and supported his head, and said with a cold face, if we don't want to be targeted by Yuan Benchu, we can only turn everything into an established fact as soon as possible, so that he has no chance to interfere with us. What about Dong Zhuo? I don't believe that Dong Zhuo spent so much effort at the beginning, and now he will be indifferent when he finally sees the results. Zhao Yun pointed out what Lu Su had always wanted to say. Dong Zhuo's life is not long in coming. Chen Shi smiled and turned out the information sent back from Chang'an and handed it to Zhao Yun and Lu Su. Take a look, I think you can see it with your ability. After Lu Su and Zhao Yun browsed roughly, they looked at each other and said in unison, Beauty. But the difference is that Zhao Yun then said with a smile, I think if the book 36 strategies can be sold, it is probably worth 10,000 gold. At least I may not have noticed this kind of detail before, but now these things have been refined to be too simple. Just set it up, although it is not very good to be flexible, but it is probably more than enough to deal with ordinary generals. Zilong, don't think about it. This kind of book is a family heirloom in any family. Sichuan is willing to lend us is extremely generous. As for selling it, it is impossible to sell it, and it has been like this since ancient times. Lu Su directly extinguished Zhao Yun's delusions. Lu Su understands the subtlety of this book very well, and unlike Sun Tzu's Art of War military books that cultivate top commanders, this book is completely used to cultivate the backbone of the army in large quantities. You don't need to think about it yourself, you only need to know how to make analogies, and you can mix it up. Relying on the 36 strategies may not be able to teach the top commanders, but it can mass-produce those quasi-first-class generals who are not too good, but they are not easy to be taken advantage of. If you use Sun Tzu's Art of War to teach, 90% of the teachings are mediocre, and the remaining achievements are elites. This is the difference. It is obvious that Chen Shi hopes that the generals can guard against ordinary strategies, and those strategies that cannot be seen at all will naturally be dealt with by professionals. Well, this book is not going to be sold. This book is mainly used for fishing. I don't know how the Lu family has studied this book. You must know that although this book cannot be used to cultivate top talents, but a lot of things can be seen in the hands of wise people. Chen Shi smiled and said, don't talk about this book. Continue to talk about Dongzhuo's problem. I estimate that it won't take long for the action to be killed by Wang Sichu. Alas, it's a pity that Li Wanyo's plan ended up like this. Lu Su sighed and said, according to his intelligence, he can definitely see it, but now he doesn't say anything, probably already chilled. It's a pity. Literati cherish each other and repel literati at any time, and Lu Su is one of the literati who admires Li Yu very much. HMH, traitor and thief. Death is not a pity. Zhao Yun said disdainfully. That's pretty much the case. Chen Shi sorted out the paperwork. Now what we have to do is to step up the purchase of grain. The previous summer grain, autumn grain Jiangnan has all been harvested. Before April comes, what we have to do is to buy grain with all our might. Yangju Chenliu Cao Mengde is struggling through this cold winter, although there is the support of the family. But Cao Mengde, who does not have enough money and food, is much more difficult than the current Liu Bei. Even if Zun Yu has run in many ways, there is no way to alleviate Cao Cao's embarrassment. There is no stable Chen Liu, and the Cao family has no idea of investing in it. Because of this, although Cao Cao won Chen Liu in 191, he did not catch up with the first opportunity to take off. But fortunately, as long as he survived this winter, Zhaoji's Tunchen could be regarded as flowering and bearing fruit. Well, it was because it was 2 months late, the summer grain did not catch up, and the seeds of tragedy had been planted. Looking back at Yuan Shu in Yuzhou, Yuan Shu's small life was very nourishing. Sitting on a fertile land in a state, after learning that Sun Jian was killed by Liu Biao, Yuan Shu decisively took in Sun Jian's women, children, old and weak, coupled with the problem of Nanyang County. Yuan Shu felt that it was necessary to clean up Yuan Yi and give Liu Biao some colors to see. He saw that Sun Jian was unhappy, and it was his business to duel with Sun Jian. But Liu Biao, you must chop it up if you intervene. So Yuan Shu has made up his mind to avenge Sun Jian. As for the Jade Seal, Yuan Shu knew that the thing was really in Sun Si's hands, but no matter how drooling he was, he held back and didn't open his mouth. The unruliness of the family did not allow him to do such a shameful thing. Robbing Sun Jian was a war between the princes, and Yuan Shu couldn't afford to lose this person. Because of this, Yuan Shu had to use that way of collecting his heart, hoping to gain the approval of the Sun family, and then send the Jade Seal up. Anyway, in Yuan Shu's opinion, the Sun family, who now has no ability to take revenge at all, will have to rely on themselves sooner or later. Chen Shi asked people to pay more attention to Yuan Shu. So far there is only one more ruthless information. Ju Yu joined Yuan Shu's forces. To be precise, Ju Yu went to find his brother, and it is estimated that Ju Yu will be able to ignite Sun Si's ambition for a while. Chapter 100 People's Livelihood and Ingenuity. Zuzhu Dao Gongzu is still vigorously supporting Liu Bei. In addition to the lease of grain and other materials, there are also a large number of low-price sales. To be honest, the existence of Zuzhu is a good real reason for Liu Bei's life. Otherwise the current development of Mount Tai will be relatively tight. After all, there are more than 300,000 mouths. Chen Shi has begun to arrange for people to try to raise chickens and ducks, whether it is for meat or for the locusts that basically pass every 2 years after that. They need to try, anyway, first try to raise them on a small scale, and then wait for the success to send seedlings on a large scale. 800,000 people are almost 200,000 households, and send a 2 million to raise. Probably the locusts will be tragic, I hope so. Anyway, in Chen Shi's thinking, 1 million chickens are only 300,000 yuan, and it is estimated that no one will pay attention if they fail to spill out. Well, generally a few books can also be sold at this price. If it succeeds, it will probably increase the happiness of the residents. It is always a good thing to have meat to eat in this era, and if you are full, you will always cultivate your anger. And a little anger is better than nothing. Chen Shi started dry, issued a notice to find someone who was good at raising chickens, and let him raise a few hundred first, but found that it was unexpectedly easy to raise, and then thought about the creatures in the whole world that had been evolving with the time of 400 years, although the appearance had not changed, but the energy had really risen. After all, the foundation of martial arts is to be able to eat. If you can't eat enough, you won't even have enough energy to sustain life. How can you refine more advanced energy and absorb it from the outside world? What are you kidding? It hasn't evolved yet, and let's talk about the ability of plants. Since it is unexpectedly easy to raise, Chen Shi is much more relieved. A household of 10 chicks, 4 people per household, less than 4 people don't care, more than 4 people are calculated according to 4 people, and then a very magical scene happened. The entire people of Taishan became a household of 4 people, and sure enough, it was still so easy to count heads. As for the number of chicks, it is not enough at all. Chen Shi can only use a brainless method to play with hatching chicks, Fire Kang. As for what temperature is 40 degrees, how to control it, it is not his own business. So many people always have someone who can clearly distinguish the temperature level, and what kind of eggs can hatch chicks is not Chen Shi's business. There will always be people who will know. After doing these things, Chen Shi finally understood why there were no large-scale chickens and ducks in ancient times. The reason was too simple. There were not so many seedlings, right? 1 million eggs that can hatch chicks is not a problem. This is just a harvest everywhere. The problem is that an old hen can only hatch about 20 at a time, and it must be strong enough. Professional things are left to professional people. But Rao is like this. Liu Bei looked at Chen Shi with very strange eyes. It is said that Chen Shi, who comes from a family, understands these things is not reasonable at all. Not to mention this kind of technology that has a huge effect on people's livelihood, it is natural not to understand. Chen Shi ignored this kind of gaze of his colleagues. Anyway, he was already magical, and he didn't care about any more magical. But Chen Shi was curious that there would be some super fierce generals when the number of people increased, such as Lu Biyu, for example, Zhao Yun, and there would also be some monsters dressed in horse skins when the number of horses increased, such as the Red Rabbit, for example, the knight shines on the Jade Lion. What about the chicken? Chen Shi was very interested, and he couldn't say that he could also cultivate a super chicken under his own hands. Thinking about a super chicken with an internal chi separation level seems to be quite sensitive. With such an idea, Chen Shi will raise a chicken that is slightly larger than his fist, and all the feathers are sent down, and he didn't say that he would not let it eat. Anyway, Chen Shi knows very well the thinking of these people. The poor people of Taishan can finally eat, and now seeing that a better future is in front of them, they will definitely not eat hope. As for the extra chickens, Chen Shi threw them all to the chicken farmer who was recruited by the defendant, and now he has become a servant of the Chen family. Chen Shi kicked that guy out of the city and asked him to raise that group of chickens. The feed was allocated by Taishan, but when the time came, all the chickens would also add meals to the Taishan army, and there was no way to leave all the roosters. Chen Shi still didn't understand how the group of people picked out 9 hens and 1 rooster when the chickens were only the size of a fist. When Chen Shi came to Mount Tai, people began to study vigorously. The things were finally a little eyebrow catching. What Chen Shi wanted, the white porcelain with flowers did not appear, and even the white porcelain could not guarantee that all of them were. But finally there was a little experimental product, and let them study the burning glass, and after burning for so long, several sets of cups came out, and they were colorful and everything. The only transparent cup was still full of cracks. Fortunately, it did not leak, and it could barely be used. But even this was called ingenious by Liu Bei. Well, since it is ingenious, Chen Shi sealed the kill without saying a word, and now it is out of print. The strength is not enough or don't produce the finished product. Now as long as you know the direction of research, as for these finished products, Chen Shi took away 3 sets, and the rest were all given to Liu Bei. As for the porcelain cups, the porcelain pot Chen Shi took 6 pure white cups, a porcelain pot, and all the others were Liu Bei's. As for who Liu Bei wanted to reward, it had nothing to do with Chen Shi. Anyway, there was no problem with this kind of scorching thing to deceive people. In short, these things in the hands of Chen Shi and Liu Bei are already out of print at the time. Whether they are used to contact the princes or deepen friendship, they are first-class treasures. At least Liu Bei thinks so. So the next day Liu Bei reluctantly regarded himself as a clever and ingenious crack that was a leak-proof transparent glass cup to Chen Shi. Chen Shi took the glass in the envious eyes of Lu Su and the others, feeling that it was cold to take it back to drink water. Just find a place to put it. In the past, when the material was rich, this kind of cup should be lost, and the manufacturer dared to take it out if it was so bad, and the manufacturer's face is estimated to be comparable to the city wall. As for the other glasses and porcelain, Liu Bei chose the best set for people to send to Chang'an quickly, and the rest were given to Kong Rong and Dao Qian, and Gongsun Boigui still sent grain and grass to the. Liu Bei is now very curious why Hua Xiong hasn't come back yet. As for the accident, Liu Bei doesn't believe it at all, not to mention Hua Xiong's own strength. As far as Hua Xiong's 4,000 elites are simply crazy in Liu Bei's opinion. a big war, 30% can still fight as if nothing happened. Who dares to mess with this kind of army? And the army, such a magical group, as long as it is organized. A little training can maintain the bloodiness and combat effectiveness that the previous organization should have. However, in view of Chen Shi's consistent precautions, Liu Bei did not ask. At least Chen Shi did not harm him. There may be some delays. Liu Bei comforted himself. In fact, he did not think that Hua Xiong was suppressing bandits in Yongju at all. Chapter 101. The Zhen family has entered the game. The Zhen family's recent happiness is about to explode, probably due to the Chinese New Year and the opposition between Gongsun Zon and Yuan Shao. Many businessmen doing business in Jizhou are a little excited. Plus they know that the Zhen family has recently made a lot of extra money. So many businessmen don't want to work in Jizhou and go to the Zhen family to sell their materials to the Zhen family at a price far below the market price, almost equivalent to the cost of the place of origin. The Zhen family has a big business, and this kind of good day is naturally not rejected. And other businessmen are worried that the war will burn to Jizhou, so they quickly give the inventory to the Zhen family. The Zhen family, as a wealthy family in Jizhou, knows more things than those businessmen with no background. But the Zhen family knows very well that the war cannot burn to Jizhou. Although Gongsun Zon attacked Wuhuan in the north, defeated the Yellow Turban in the south, and the White Horse righteousness was extremely strong, but the Zhen family knew that this was all superficial, and the Yuan family of the fourth generation and three dukes only needed to tilt the family foundation slightly to Jizhou to reverse the war situation. It is precisely because of this that the Zhen family began the whole Jizhou sweep operation. Since they know that this battle will be won, the Zhen family is not worried that their business will be hit hard, and continue to sweep goods all over Jizhou, all merchants as long as they don't want to do it. The inventory of the Zhen family is emptied. Of course, the price is only the cost price, and it is also the cost price of the place of origin. However, RAO is like this. Jizhou's large and small businessmen are basically sold to the Zhen family at a low price with the land plus inventory. Of course, the land is to protect the capital, and the inventory can only be calculated at the cost price of the place of origin, which can be said to be a crazy loss. Jizhou is a large state. In this era before the chaos of war, there is a population of 5 million, so Yuan Shao's heritage is not blown, although it is even deceived. But after taking Jizhou a little pacified, Yuan Shao's strength has become the first prince under Dong Zhuo, and his brother Yuan Shu has a fight. In a large state with a large population, naturally there are more shops, more people running away, and the Zhen family needs to buy more. As a family that has been around for hundreds of years, the Zhen family has a very strong reputation, and it can be said to be one of the best families on the ground in Jizhou, so the merchants didn't say much, and if there is no money, you cannot pay first. Anyway, we sell to the Zhen family for a piece, but if you don't pay, the price will rise at that time. Of course, this is a part of the people. Some of them say that they must see cash, and the remaining part of them express their hope that they can replace their own stores in Jizhou with stores in other states and counties under the name of the Zhen family. In this way, the Zhen family cobbled together and ate the entire store inventory in Jizhou. This huge cake made even Yuan Shao a little excited, but the Zhen family did this. Yuan Shao sent someone to intervene now. One is not Road. The other Yuan Shao has already thought about borrowing chickens and eggs. The Zhen family now has 2 little brats left, who knows what to slowly encroach on. In another place, Mizhu was leading a large number of merchants from his chamber of commerce to drink tea. Of course, there were some things to explain, and now the merchants who accompanied him to drink tea were all trusted characters. What do you think of this exchange? Mizhu sat in the chairman's seat and said with a smile on his face that he had become richer in recent times. Zizhong is worthy of being the head of the 5 wealthy merchants. This time we got back the store we always wanted with almost no loss. We have never had the opportunity to get it before, and this time it was finally a success. A little old man wrapped in a padded jacket complimented with a smile, and we put a bunch of news, finally hiding our purpose. I think the Zhen family didn't expect that their so-called low-price acquisition could actually make a small profit. Joyfully. Then you all agree before, how about I, the president, make a profit? Mizhu said with a smile. Although my Mi family is slightly inferior to the Zhen family in terms of family property, there is no big problem in acquiring the collateral in your hands. And thanks to your love, I, the president, also want to show you the way, and everyone here believes in the alliance, so I will take out this thing. Why did the head of the Mi family say this? Since we joined the Mi family chamber of commerce, we have been planning for us, so we all plan to give the mortgage of the Zhen family to the president. As for the losses of those small businessmen, we will naturally not eat them in vain. As soon as he heard that Mizhu planned to acquire, Zhao Zun, who was also from Zuzhu, stood up and said. Recently, Zhao Zun has felt the huge potential of this chamber of commerce, and Mizhu, as the leader, naturally no one can move the position of president. But Mizhu often needs to run around. Zhao Zun naturally took a fancy to the vacant vice president position, which is a big fat difference. Just scratch a little, and the Zhao family in Zuzhu can get fat. Mizhu smiled bitterly in his heart, and was really guessed by Chen Shi. The 2 vice presidents' positions were vacant just to tempt people to take the bait, and sure enough, someone took the bait. In that case, then I'll accept it. After Mi Zhu declined twice, he accepted everyone's kindness. After all, a selfless person will not feel at ease, and it is in line with human nature to do something for his own selfish interests. After a while, Mi Zhu asked people to ride the wool thread, one for each person, and soon all the merchants began to study the wool thread, and finally the little old man of the Zhong family who spoke before spoke, "I dare to ask the president how this thing is made, neither hemp nor silk." When he said this, the little old man's eyes lit up. As long as he was not a fool, he could see the huge profits in it. Twine and silk thread are both daily necessities, and the profits of daily necessities are much larger than luxury goods, and once this kind of thread can be popularized, then the profit is enough to start a war. It's yarn. Mi Zhu smiled bitterly and said, "Who would have thought that this thing was actually made of wool? It is made of wool." Wool thread is less difficult than twine, especially at the beginning. Chenxi doesn't care about the difference between coarse wool, fine wool, and cashmere, as long as you can make wool thread. After the craftsman took over, it didn't take much time to come up with a usable wool thread, but that's it, human habits are difficult to avoid. Chenxi directly told him other ways. It was over, otherwise it would be difficult to bypass this bend in decades. With a hint, the craftsman quickly developed 3 types of woolen threads. One was coarse wool thread for weaving carpets, one was woolen thread made of fine wool combed from a comb, which could be used to make clothes, and one was cashmere combed out using a grate. As for the problem of goats producing less hard wool, in Chenxi's opinion, it is not a problem at all, it is much better than linen. Besides, a small amount of cashmere can also impact the upper market. Rare things are expensive, and goat cashmere is soft enough. Wool. Everyone read it in unison, and then they were stunned, and then when they reacted, they all looked at Mi Zhu in a daze. This has really become a big business, super huge, and the profits in it can give any family a wealth that is as good as the total assets of the 5 wealthy merchants, and it lasts endlessly. Chapter 102. It's too expensive. Forget about eating black. This thing was developed by Chen Zichuan under the command of Duke Xuanda, so please calm down the family behind you. Mi Zhu naturally clearly saw the greed in the eyes of everyone, the charming eyes of wealth and nobility. Only enough strength or enough heritage can suppress the greed of others, and Liu Bei just has a royal identity, which is enough to make the northern family jealous. With Mi Zhu's warning, all the businessmen barely suppressed the greed in their hearts. After all, Liu Xuanda's name is still a bit famous, and the only ones who dare to pursue Dong Zhuojuan are Liu Bei and Cao Cao, and both of them are still from Yangzhou, so naturally they are not small. But since I took out this thing, that means I don't plan to eat alone. You are all the spokespersons of the northern family. Then I think we can join forces to control the wool production in the north, and the profit of Xuanda Gong is only half, and you divide the rest. I have something to leave now, and if there is anything, I will leave it to Kuxing, Zhao Zun. After saying that, Mi Zhu left as soon as he bowed his hands, which can be regarded as acquiescing to Zhao Zun's position as vice president. But whether he can get it depends on his ability. After all, there are many people staring at this position, and he can only help here. As soon as Mi Zhu left, all the businessmen got to know each other, put away the yarn in their hands and prepared to turn around their respective families. Some things they were just people on the table, the real decision was still the family behind them, they were not as free as Mi Zhu. And Mi Zhu knew these things, so he took out the wool made of cashmere and gave it directly to them. In this way, it is already possible for any family in the north to monopolize it, so there is only one way to go, that is, to unite. By the way, Chenxi also wants to see if these families will directly swallow Liu Bei's share together. If they do not invade, it means that these families and Liu Bei may coexist peacefully. If they swallow it directly, then don't think about borrowing from the family in the future. In ancient times, because of the difficult journey, it was easy for officialdom and forces to form region-centered groups, and the north and south and east and west of the Han dynasty did not stop. Chenxi would not mind letting the north and south pinch each other. It was best to wear down the forces of both sides, so even if it was swallowed, there was not much loss. Similarly, Chenxi also felt that those people couldn't go around a bend. This thread was spun out of cashmere, and it was wool to the outside world. As long as they found that once they couldn't imitate it, a lot of thoughts would be extinguished. Give a radish to the north, a sweet date to the south. Fight, the worse you fight, the better to clean up the situation. Chenxi's evil is not something these people can estimate at all, and only Mi Zhu feels that Chenxi will not really be taken advantage of by others. Thinking about it, the Zhen family is now regarded as a white silk sleeved around the neck. Looking back, as long as the Mi family sells cheaper than the Zhen family in Jizhou, when the time comes in April next year, as soon as the IOU is taken, the Zhen family can be directly sued to death, and it can be said that the Zhen family is not far from the whole family being sold into slavery. As for the protection of officials, at that time, the war between Yuan Shao and Gongsun Zon was on fire, so Yuan Shao took the risk of provoking Liu Bei about Zhong Jiao plus the strength of a county. Yuan Shao did not want to be attacked from both sides and backs. Gongsun Zon's guy belonged to the madness, and he was easy to fight, and 300,000 Wu Huan could be defeated abruptly. So the probability of the Zhen family being abandoned by Yuan Shao exceeded 90%, and at most the bloodline of the Zhen family was maintained. As for the family property, it was no longer taken care of at that time. As for whether Yuan Shao will have any ideas to make Liu Bei look good after cleaning up Gongsun Zon, when Yuan Shao finishes cleaning up Gongsun Zon and swallows the land of Qingju, Liu Bei is already qualified to break his wrist with Yuan Shao. At that time you want to make Liu Bei look good. Liu Bei doesn't make you look good, it's strange. Gongsun Boisgouet is a hard bone, especially when Liu Bei still supplies materials. Maybe Gongsun Boisgouet, who could have lasted for 3 years, may be able to withstand 5 years. And 3 or 5 years is enough for Liu Bei to eat Qingju and wipe it clean, digest it and turn to other places. Zizhong, you're back. Chen Shi looked at the dusty Mi Zhu. This guy finally rushed back during the Chinese New Year. I've already done what Zichuan explained. Zhen family, it's a pity. Mi Zhu smiled bitterly and said, I plan to move my family to Mount Tai. As for the salt industry, I plan to slowly move down to those merchants in the north and south. As for the price, I think it's best not to be too low. How about 800 yuan per stone, 5 times that of chestnut rice? Of course I'm talking about the price of Taishan chestnut rice. I don't care about other places. Chen Shi thought for a moment and said, the power of direct dumping is indeed huge, but if it is a little cheaper, others will not notice, and for Chen Shi, there is a profit for how much money is profitable. It's not too cheap. What about the inside of Mount Tai? Mi Zhu asked curiously. The internal price of Taishan is equivalent to chestnut rice, but it can only be purchased for 1 month at a time. Chen Shi said with a smile, in this case, merchants who want to mix cheap salt in Taishan basically can't make any money. Well, Zichuan is indeed cautious. Let me tell you a piece of news. I got the news from my Chamber of Commerce. There is a batch of about 3,000 or 4,000 war horses in the north that have not been homed, 30,000 yuan a horse. I have seen the goods. But because this batch of horses belong to black goods, it is not easy to transport back, although I paid the deposit, but it is not easy to pick up the goods. Do you have a way? Mi Zhu told Chen Shi good news. 30,000? The border can't be so cheap. 60,000 war horses in the border counties. 100,000 in the inner counties. Isn't this the price all the time? Chen Shi was shocked. This price is too scary. It won't be black eating black. That's why I asked you. Mi Zhu glanced at Chen Shi and said, who's it? Chen Shi asked. Dong Zhuo's horse. Mi Zhu spoke, so those guys in the north are worried about being pulled by Dong Zhuo, because they want to pass through Bingju. Yuan Benchu has some whips that are beyond his reach. Kaomengde can't afford it. People want cash, or grain trading. How much deposit did you pay? Chen Shi asked curiously. $1 million. Mi Zhu said calmly, as if he was saying that the money was nothing even if it was lost. I'll write a letter to Hua Xiong and let him eat black. Chen Shi said unmorally, the Shiliang Iron Cavalry has begun to sell horses. It seems that life is really bad enough. There is no way. Dong Zhuojian and Yunwu are really looting too hard. There is not much way for the soldiers to survive at all. Selling horses or something is also a last resort, but this is a good opportunity. Mi Zhu suddenly felt that it was not a good thing to tell Chen Shi about this matter at all. This was smashing his own signboard. Oh, I was wrong. I just went to recruit those who sold horses. Hua Xiong was a general in Shiliang at the beginning. Chen Shi seemed to feel Mi Zhu's eyes, so he raised his head and explained. Seeing that Mi Zhu still maintained a distrustful gaze, Chen Shi had to tell the truth. 100 million yuan or 600,000 stones of grain is too much. Mount Tai is too poor, but the war horse is too important. This is good. Chapter 103 The Curtain Opens. Anyway, in Chen Shi's view, Dong Zhuo will die in a few months. The Shiliang army will also be in chaos, and the reorganized Shiliang army Hua Xiong is not easy to provoke. For example, if you buy it now, you will probably pay less money even if it is to give you face. Otherwise the Shiliang army will have to eat you black. After all, who dares to take advantage of the Shiliang army at this time? The upper echelons of the Shiliang army can make you understand whose place Yongju is. After waiting for a few months, Dong Zhuo pounced, and Hua Xiong went to eat black. It is estimated that the Shiliang army did not even have the mind to take care of it. But Chen Shi's current consideration is whether the other party can endure it for 3 or 4 months without letting go. Then there's no need to do this kind of thing. Mi Zhu persuaded that this kind of thing is too hurtful for law-abiding businessmen. Han thieves are incompatible. Chen Shi sacrificed a great killer, and Mi Zhu had nothing to say. Anyway, in Chen Shi's opinion, Dong Zhuo is dead. Even if those things are inheritances, and there is no official heir, it is natural to donate them to the country, and Liu Bei, as a member of the Han family, should receive it. As the end of the year approaches, the taste of the new year is not felt at all. There is no red paper, no couplets, no firecrackers, only small wooden signs with words written on the door. At most there are more meals at home. As for the rest, There is no difference at all from the usual time. The new year at the end of the Eastern Han dynasty is simply not any different. Probably the lower class people at this time almost do not feel this way. The Chen family is a little more popular now, but the family members that can be recognized by Chen Shi are Uncle Chen, Chen Lan, and Fan Jian. But what is more amazing is that the eldest lady Fan Jian actually makes a little New Year's dinner, such as lotus root, meatballs, and the like, and they are still very good. Looking at the sweet and sour meatballs, steamed meatballs, slippery meatballs, braised meatballs, tofu meatballs, croquettes, etc. on the table, Chen Shi, who was big and small, meat and vegetarian, suddenly had the idea of eating himself into meatballs. However, seeing Fan Jian's slightly twisted expression, Chen Shi sighed. She should eat or eat it, and she would probably be sad if she had wasted a lot of effort in Fan Jian. Jenna, did you do all this? Chen Shi used chopsticks to pick up one of each for himself, tasted it, except for some of the meatballs that tasted really weird. The other meatballs were unexpectedly delicious. Fan Jian nodded repeatedly, a hint of pride appeared on his face, and then stared at Chen Shi without speaking. Drawing inferences from one example to another, it should be praised at all times, and it can be seen that Fan Jian is very confident in his cooking level. Taste it yourself. Chen Shi picked up a few of the meatballs that tasted obviously wrong on each plate and put them in a small bowl. Come on, open your mouth. Fan Jian was obviously stunned, and then blushed below his neck, but he still closed his eyes slightly and opened his mouth to wait for Chen Shi to feed. Chen Lan appeared at the right time, and then stood at the door, saw this scene and blushed, and directly prepared to close the door and go back to sleep. Come over to me. Chen Shi directly stopped Chen Lan. Chen Lan came over hesitantly, sat next to Fan Jian, and then obediently closed her eyes and waited for feeding. Chen Shi was speechless. Chen Lan, you performed too well today, now I don't know who to give the pills to first, and Fan Jian has begun to squint at Chen Shi's reaction, half squinting, but the blush on his face has not subsided. Chen Shi slowly retracted his hand, took all the bowls of meatballs with obvious strange tastes into his mouth, chewed them a few times, and swallowed them abruptly. My husband seems to like these plates of meatballs very much. Fan Jian's eyes showed a hint of joy, and then quickly filled Chen Shi, and Chen Lan also followed. Husband, eat more. Chen Lan said, but it was obvious that there was a pity in his eyes. Looking down at a bowl full of dark cuisine-level meatballs, and then looking at other meatballs that can basically be said to be delicious level, Chen Shi turned his head silently and said with a smile, Come, Jenna, Lana, my husband feeds you. I still remember that I picked them up. Husband and wife, naturally have to be in trouble. One person fed 3 or 5, and then bit the bullet and swallowed the others, and then watched the two swallow the pills with painful faces. Chen Shi instantly balanced, but always felt that something was wrong. The meatballs made by me are so unpalatable. The traditional and simple expressions that were originally happy instantly turned into tearful expressions. Eat yours. Chen Shi re-pinched a ball to block Fan Jian's mouth. The first time I made so much, just a few were not bad. Eat. After eating, make some jewelry for one of you. Mi Zizhong told me that his family is making jewelry. I will take you there. Customized is much better than popular. You can play whatever style you like. Chen Shi comforted Fan Jian and said, at least he couldn't do this level in the first place. As for the first time it was all dark cuisine. Fan Jian was very good. In this plain New Year without couplets, no firecrackers, no incense candles, and dumplings still need Chen Shi to do it himself. When he fell asleep with traditional slips, Chen Shi felt that the heartache had faded too much, and maybe time was really the best way to spend memory and pain. There is no New Year's flavor, but the life is still warm. Chen Shi felt for the first time that there were other goals in her life besides distant ideals. The plain and warm days passed quickly without much feeling, and everything in Taishan after the year was unremarkable. Chen Shi still maintained the habit of gathering refugees. No matter when, Chen Shi believed that the population of this era was the fundamental factor that affected everything. Chen Shi has accepted the traditional and simple, different from the kind of indifference at that time in Yingchuan, just looking for someone to live a life. The current traditional and simple is very important to Chen Shi, and it can barely hide the figure in Chen Shi's heart, but it is a pity that the unforgettable one is always gone, and the traditional and simple can never surpass the girl who has been buried in the grave and weeds. The April sun fell on Chen Shi's body, with a hint of warmth, and after receiving the information handed over by Liu Yi, Chen Shi sighed, and finally began. The princes of the world, all the careerists in the world were finally going to step onto the stage at the end of the Han dynasty. On this day, Chen Shi received information from all sides one after another, as if God had opened this curtain on this day. In April 192, Gong Sun Zon's troops set out from Jizhou. Yuan Shao fought against him. Yuan Shu sent troops out of Yangzhou. Yuan Yi fought against him, and at the same time, intelligence came from Yongzhou, and soon after, Emperor Xian abdicated the throne to Dong Zhuo, and the latest intelligence, millions of Qingzhou yellow turban soldiers sent to Yangzhou. The drama of troubled times finally kicked off at this moment. Chapter 10 for the flooded and troublesome yellow turbans. Finally everything started, so much preparation was made, and finally this day came. Chen Shi pinched the slip and flashed a flash of excitement on his face, and then calmed down again. The Qingju Yellow Turban was defeated by the Yellow Turban leader Chen Pai, Hu Qian, and Fu Yun, and the number exceeded 1 million. Although I have been mentally prepared, this number is too much. Chen Shi looked at the information in his hand and was speechless. More than 1 million yellow turbans. Lu Su also convulsed a little. If you eat it, you will die. Liu Yi added. If you can't eat it, you will be beaten to death in the future. Chen Shi turned his head and said, do your best, take as much as you can. Isn't it just the yellow turbans? I caught a lot when I was in Qingju. Fa Zhang said nonchalantly. The yellow turban seemed completely stress-free to him. Alas, it's still too small. Guo Jiao looked lonely, stretched out his hand and pressed it on Fa Zhang's shoulder. Young man, you still need to exercise more. I'm already crowned. Fa Zhang angrily slapped Guo Jiao's right hand on his shoulder, and then said loudly, the maturity of appearance does not represent the maturity of your mind. Guo Jiao's melancholy expression of I didn't educate you well, I'm sorry for your father stung Fa Zhang deeply. Leave it to me, this time I will clean up these yellow turbans. As long as I give me 50,000 people, I can swallow all these yellow turbans. Fa Zhang was a little manic by Guo Jiao. It seems that this age really remembers to eat and not to beat. Fa Zhang, who was caught by Guo Jiao and beaten several times, still did not learn to calm down, and was slightly provoked by Guo Jiao into a manic state, and it was estimated that in a few minutes he would be speechless by Guo Jiao again, and then the whole person entered a sluggish state. Poor Fa Zhang. Chen Shi turned his head and glanced at Fa Zhang. Why is this guy still so second? It's okay when he is good, why do he have to fight when he sees Guo Jiao? Lu Su and Liu Yi looked at each other and sighed. The two behind couldn't count on it. Guo Jiao had already done what he could do, and now Fa Zhang was always a little cautious enough in doing things. Why was he playing so dangerously? Report. Dong Jun is reporting. A herald shouted loudly, and then presented the latest information. Chen Shi casually opened the information, and then smiled bitterly. Liu Dai died, supported under the million yellow turbans for 3 days, and was killed. As a Han clan relative who was not good at literature and martial arts, he actually led his men to rush into battle, what a brainless person can do. Several people circulated this information, and immediately had a certain understanding of the combat effectiveness of the yellow turbans, and the combat effectiveness of the yellow turbans was piled up in a proper quantity. Chen Shi also felt that the yellow turbans were easy to deal with at first. After all, the world's top military generals had a high level of force, and there was no pressure to break up the soldiers, so they were afraid of forming a military formation. Because once a military formation is formed, the formation of synchronization between the soldiers, and the breath is densely connected can offset the internal qi damage of the top generals. Of course, this offset is similar to the apportionment. The nearby allocation is relatively large, and the far allocation is relatively small, but they are all offsetting the internal qi. It can be said that an excellent commander, commanding 1,800 elite level soldiers, as long as he can connect the internal qi, even if he is a master of Guan Yu's level, he will definitely die if he rushes in single-handedly. However, because this kind of internal qi is not very reliable, it is always more shared where the generals cut and kill, and the other enemies share less. So in fact, even if the clouds formed by the soldiers are formed into an army, it is to offset the internal qi of the generals. As for blocking bows and arrows, javelins, and so on, don't think about tangible and qualitative attacks. As far as the soldiers' shallow internal qi cultivation is not prevented at all, it is accurate to say that the internal qi is not too good for tangible and qualitative attack and defense. In fact, at the end of the Han dynasty, Chen Shi had already studied the problem of internal qi for such a long time, and indeed everyone had the hope of practicing a breath, or directly said that everyone could do it. But the problem was that because you couldn't eat enough, you didn't have the opportunity to practice that qi at all. This is why the people on the 9th floor still have no inner qi, because the steps of the inner qi are so low, and the reason is very simple. As for the difference between those who practice the first breath and those who do not, the person who practices the first breath can burst out with strength beyond normal when necessary. To put it simply, 1 second is still a normal person, and the next second can pick up a large stone of hundreds of pounds and skim it out, but it is only the difference at this moment. The overall physical fitness of people who have an extra breath at other times is only a little stronger than that of normal people. As for the formation of military formations, the impact is great, and the offsetting ability of military formations formed by people with internal energy is much better than that of miscellaneous soldiers without internal energy. In Chen Shi's previous judgment, the current yellow turban bandits should belong to miscellaneous soldiers with no internal energy and no military formation. As a result, the current situation proved one thing to Chen Shi: even if he did not practice the first breath, the people in this world were still a little different from the people in the original world. That is, the people in this world who did not practice the inner chi still exuded a chi that was so thin that no one saw it. Liu Dai died in this regard, and no one would have thought that even if there was no internal chi and no yellow turbans in the military formation, there would be huge changes when the strength reached a certain level. The vast majority of the yellow turbans who can't eat have enough to eat have no inner strength, and it is a helpless move to eat out of Qingju this time. But it is estimated that the yellow turbans themselves did not expect that the huge number of them would make their combat effectiveness extremely terrifying, especially after the mutation. Even if the yellow turban bandits do not have the efficiency of the military formation to closely connect the internal chi, and most of them who are not enough to eat do not have the trace of internal chi of those who have internal chi, but the number of more than 1 million abruptly manifests those invisible chi, and an earthy yellow cloud appears above the head, producing the effect that only appears when using the military formation. After learning the news, Chen Shi knew that the yellow turban was not delicious this time, and the yellow turban with clouds and without clouds were completely two concepts. As long as there were millions of yellow turbans without clouds, Zhong Zhao and the three of them dared to rush inside with 3,000 people, and they could ensure that they would retreat with their bodies. If there are clouds to offset the internal chi, 3,000 people may be extinguished without even turning over the splash. The yellow turbans are really a troublesome group, Chen Shi frowned and thought, but fortunately, these yellow turbans must be guaranteed in quantity to have the same protection as the military formation, and once separated, they will become meat on the chopping board. If there are weaknesses, it is easy to do. If it is really invulnerable and can only attack, it will be much more difficult, since a huge number of people are needed to maintain the clouds, then separate the yellow turbans, Chen Shi thought. Chapter 105 The Terrifying Elite Troops. Chang'an City Gate Hua Xiong threw out a handful of money and walked in. His current image is absolutely no one knows unless it is a former acquaintance. Yesterday heard that the Han Emperor was going to abdicate to Dong Zhuo. Hua Xiong understood that the time was up, and he understood that the abdication period was the death of his former lord Dong Zhuo. Since coming to Yongju in November last year, Hua Xiong has spent 4 months integrating the Yongju bandits, and installed his personal guards. Maybe he can't set up a military formation now, but it's okay to make a scare shape. As for the real combat effectiveness, it's still the 4,000 steps he has completed. Speaking of which, Hua Xiong is quite strange. In addition to a cavalry unit, he now has an elite infantry trained by himself in the Taishan Mountains, adding up to 7,000 people, and Guan Yu and Zhong Fei are now only 4,000 cavalry and infantry mixed corps, although Zhao Yun said that there are more than 10,000 people. But what can really be taken is only 1,500 elite cavalry and 2,500 mixed infantry. As for the others, there are more than 1,000 people, and they are basically infantry. Because of this, Hua Xiong always felt strange. His subordinates said that it was a mixed infantry and cavalry corps, but it could be dismantled into two, and Zhong Ba, as his deputy general, still had 1,000 people, adding up to 2 mixed infantry and cavalry corps. Originally, it was thought that the soldiers trained in Taishan would be converted into Tuntian soldiers after fighting the Battle of Mount Tai, but after Liu Bei finished reading it, he directly stuffed all the reorganized infantry into him, which made Hua Xiong very puzzled, and he also made up for the establishment, and those new Tuntian soldiers all became silent and resolute under the leadership of the veterans, firmly supporting Hua Xiong, which made Hua Xiong very puzzled. However, Hua Xiong is still very grateful for Liu Bei's trust. People with rectal temperament are good at this, and there is no need to think about things that cannot be figured out. However, Hua Xiong was grateful for Liu Bei's trust, so he trained his subordinates more vigorously. He wanted to train his subordinates into elite. In the past, every time he passed by the Bingju camp, he saw that all the dead people were trapped in the camp. Hua Xiong was a person of envy and jealousy. 700 people together on Lu Biyu riding a red rabbit were beaten to the point of holding their heads. It is said that this is still Jiao Shun's subordinates merciful. Hua Xiong really wanted to reach this level, so he secretly asked Jiao Shun before, but people said that a prohibition was the elite of this world, and he began to think it was a joke, and then Hua Xiong went to practice for a long time and found that this was not a human job, but now it is much better, and this group of people under him may be able to practice. Hua Xiong felt that it was necessary to look at the military book, the round formation, the square formation, the blade and arrow formation, etc. But he really couldn't show his level, so he was now studying the Xuanxiang formation. He could now play to normal difficulty. It is said that there is an upgraded version of the 8-door Golden Lock and an advanced version of the Bagua Array Ultimate Edition or something. However, Hua Xiong's current formation can be played, saying that the same formation will have different effects in the hands of different people. For example, the same round formation, the trap camp and the yellow turban play are completely two effects. Now that Hua Xiong's blade formation has reached a certain level, it can barely distribute the clouds to the soldiers on the edge of the blade formation, but this can only be done by commanding his own infantry regiment. As for commanding the cavalry, Hua Xiong smiled. If the cavalry could distribute the power of the clouds to the soldiers on the edge of the arrow when attacking, Hua Xiong felt that he could probably play cavalry charge, and there was no need to play in circles at all. He could directly chisel through the general troops, and then cut directly. However, it is precisely because of the higher the degree of obedience of his subordinates, the more Hua Xiong feels the horror of Jiao Shun, and he can now rely on the military formation to accumulate the scattered chi of his soldiers in the clouds above his head, and then distribute them to his soldiers in the battle to strengthen their attacks. What about that guy Jiao Shun? Every time I think of that point, Hua Xiong feels shuddering. Probably he has been able to distribute these forces finely, and it is estimated that quickly mobilizing these forces to attack and defend conversion is not a problem for Jiao Shun's sincerity, and even maybe Jiao Shun can rely on the internal energy emitted by everyone to rely on the blessing of the military formation to some designated people. Thinking of these, Hua Xiong finally understands why he has never seen many people killed in which battle he fell into the camp. However, Hua Xiong didn't think that he would be defeated if he really encountered Jiao Shun's trapped camp, and his 4,000 guard infantry would definitely fight to the death, so that even if he was defeated in the end, Jiao Shun would probably have half a battalion left. Of course, these are Hua Xiong's estimates. If there is no need for him to fight Jiao Shun, the more he knows, the more he will discover its horror. He can also be regarded as understanding why Liu Biyu wants to suppress Jiao Shun. This kind of person is too dangerous, as long as there are 3,000 people to reach the previous level, and then once they do it, even if Dongzhuo wants to exterminate it, it is estimated that it will hurt the bones. Hua Xiong had already stepped on the point a few months ago, and now he needs to stay in the place he has chosen for a few days. As for the kidnapping, the night before the Han Emperor's abdication, this is what Chen Shi clearly explained. For the sake of safety, Hua Xiong decided to do it himself, but the relatively troublesome thing was that he found that once his infantry regiment left him, it immediately became free and loose, and there was no iron-blooded aura of elite soldiers at all, and once he came back, his infantry regiment would directly become one of the best in the world. Sitting in the corner of a restaurant far away from Joshu's house, the windows on the left and right walls were wide open, blowing a cool breeze. No one would notice this Guanxi man wearing a single shirt, let alone that this big man could still see every inch of Joshu's family at this distance, and he could also see Li Rujia's every move when he turned his head. Hey! Hua Xiong looked at the empty soil paved in the garden in the backyard of the Jiao family and was a little curious, and soon it was another basket, and now even if Hua Xiong's brain reacted slowly, he knew what was going on. Jiao Wenhe really just wants to ignore others. As long as he tells Li Yu and others the news can definitely avoid it. This guy actually ran away by himself. Dong Xiong gave such a high treatment, and he has never come up with a plan, and now when it is time to repay, he actually left directly. Hua Xiong thought with some resentment, but quickly calmed down. He was no longer Shiliang Hua Xiong, but his eyes did not hide his contempt. If he couldn't do anything to eat the king's salary and be loyal to the king, what was the point of being talented? Accepting it is just a scourge. Forget it, let's save the military division first. As for Jiao Wenhe, consider you lucky. Chen Zichuan ordered that you must be brought back. Hua Xiong casually ordered a few pig thighs and gnawed on them, but his eyes never left the mansions of the Jiao family and the Li family. On the border of Yongju, there are now 4,000 horses in the horse market opened by the Shiliang soldiers. Of course, many of them are still undomesticated wild horses. They have eaten the grain and grass supplied by the Yongju bandits until now. After all, the bandits also made it very clear that they are still raising funds, and there is no way that the bandits will not have enough money to buy so many horses even if they have a little spare money. Chapter 106: Returning the Gift and Going Away. This is very common sense, so the Shiliang army also ate the tribute of the Yongju bandits, while waiting for the bandits to take money or grain to buy horses, and then eat black. To be honest, the Shiliang army planned to eat black from the beginning, so they were not worried about getting into trouble. Their boss is about to ascend the throne now. What are they worried about? While bragging and farting with the bandits who served, the Shiliang soldiers were preparing to kill this group of bandits. After all, it was natural for officers and soldiers to eliminate bandits. The bandits in Yuju were bragging with the Shiliang soldiers who sold horses, while preparing to kill this group of non-human things. As for food and money, they were not enough to give to the Shiliang soldiers. Are you kidding? And if these Shiliang soldiers hadn't plundered everywhere, would they have to be bandits? Therefore, in the minds of the bandits in Yongju, as soon as the news of their leading brother arrives, these bastards will become meat on the chopping board, and they will be cut into minced meat. As for these 4,000 horses, they naturally rode and ran, and they couldn't afford to provoke you Shiliang soldiers, and after doing this vote, they would not be in Yongju directly, and how could 4,000 horses change their origins with other princes? With this mind, whether it is the bandits in Yongju or the soldiers in Shiliang, they all call their brothers, touch the knife in their hands, and be absolutely merciless when it is time to do it. On the other hand, Gong Sunzon also received Liu Bei's supplies and letters, which were not long and the content was very simple. A brief explanation of his current situation, that is, he said that his yellow turbans here in Mount Tai are close to Qingju and have not directly faced Jizhou, so it is not easy to help, and the yellow turbans are still some changes, and it is not easy for him to leave. The other said that the brother is barely wide now. I heard that you are going to fight Yuan Shao. No matter what the reason, I will first raise 100,000 stones of grain for you, a boatload of refined salt, and 10 million money. If the materials are not enough, I can get a little more. Gong Sun Zon received this letter and the materials transported by the Liu family fleet with emotion, and the sad mood of touching Liu Yu's nose before was instantly relieved, or his own brother. Liu Bei himself has only been in Mount Tai for more than half a year. It is estimated that the people under his rule have not been appeased, and he has directly given so many materials when he wants to take revenge. This is his brother. There are brothers who support Gong Sun Zon and feel that he is burning. Yuan Shao said that he wanted to divide Jizhou equally, but now he actually swallowed it alone, and if he didn't teach him a lesson, he probably forgot that he was the White Horse General Gong Sun Zon. Guarang, how many horses are there in our horse farm? Gong Sun Zon received Liu Bei's confidence very well. 100,000 stones of grain is nothing. A boatload of salt is enough for his army for 3 months. 10 million yuan is the price of 100 horses. But in Gong Sun Zon's view, this is all brotherly friendship. How can you give some return gifts? And now Gong Sun Zon, who is full of confidence, feels that he will not fail at all. We had just plundered the Wuhuan and Xianbei before. In addition to the white horses incorporated into the righteous team, there are now a large number of variegated horses, which were originally planned to be sold to the Yuan family in Yuzhou, the Zhen family in Jizhou, the Kui family, and the Zhong family in Qinghe at a price of 70,000 yuan a horse. But now we plan to fight Jizhou, and naturally the horses are still in our hands. Chen Yu said with a calm face. He knew that Gong Sun Zon had committed another old problem. After following Gong Sun Zon for so long, Chen Yu has long figured out Gong Sun Zon's pulse. This guy looks at whoever is pleasing to the eye, then the other party is right in whatever he does. If he doesn't like it, then no matter how flattering the other party is, he won't give a good face, and Liu Bei just doesn't know why he fell into Gong Sun Zon's eyes, so Gong Sun Zon took care of his old classmate very much. In the past, Chen Yu felt that it was really stupid to do this, but this time he saw the materials transported by Mount Tai in the port of Liaoxi County, and Chen Yu also agreed with Gong Sun Zon's style, although 90% of it would be a white-eyed wolf, but occasionally there were one or two like Liu Bei's powerful previous investment that was worth it in an instant. So this time Chen Yu did not persuade Gong Sun Zon not to send Liu Bei things. Chen Yu and Gong Sun Zon have the same view. Liu Bei went to Taishan for only half a year, and now it is estimated that he has done his best to come up with these things. For Gong Sun Zon, like a local tyrant, in addition to salt is important. Liu Bei's other materials are nothing at all. Think about the 3,000 white horses and 2 horses per person, 2 pounds of grain a day, 20 pounds of horses a day. A person needs 2,000 stones of grain to eat horses every day, and 100,000 stones is a month's and a half of rations, not to mention the infantry of the brigade. Giving all those variegated ones to Xuande, didn't you mean to catch a few wild horses that were about to refine their qi into gang? Except for the white one, all were given to Xuande. Gong Sun Zon directly gave Chen Yu an order. If his horse farm had not recently plundered Wuhuan and Xianbei, otherwise it would have been all white horses, and Gong Sun Zon of other colors would always feel upset when he saw it, and it would be better to give away or sell the variegated ones. Chen Shi looked at Liu Bei's appointment letter, pressed his eyebrows. Should he refuse? After all, he was about to get married, so he went to pick it up, and the marriage did not need to be concluded. What is the difficulty of Sichuan? Liu Bei asked, puzzled. It's nothing, I just think I can send Xiang to my side. Chen Shi shook his head and said the reason. You are the commander of this time, and the natural person is chosen by you, as long as you leave enough garrison troops for Mount Tai. Liu Bei said with a smile. Well, then leave it to me. Chen Shi nodded and accepted the appointment letter, ready to go back and hand over government affairs with Lu Su, and then he went to Qingju to pack up the yellow turbans. But before that, he needed to explain to Fan Jian and Chen Lan. After all, this time it was a regular military service, and it would be normal to take a wife to invite hatred, and he was a little worried that Chen Lan still had Fan Jian. Chen Shi doesn't want to express any opinion about the commander. What he is good at is not war at all, but as a commander, he can still barely do it. After all, what Chen Shi said is there, and knowing people to make good use of it, as long as the ability of each general is exerted. If this is still defeated, it is not his problem, it is purely a reason for strength. Besides, this time it is to fight the yellow turbans, not to fight with Drama Jitsai, Zun, Cheng Yu as a staff officer Cao Cao, and he has a ruthless vote under his command, not to mention fighting the yellow turbans. The delay time is enough to drag the yellow turbans to death. The enemy who has no food will probably be able to catch prisoners when he is hungry. What a good military exploit. After all, Mount Tai is the gateway to Zuzhu. If Mount Tai can't bear Zuzhu, he will definitely be unlucky, and Zuzhu should indeed be made to bear some responsibility. Stepping out of the government office, Chen Shi looked at the sky, went on an expedition. This is the first time. It seems that there is nothing to be excited about, even if the yellow turbans are just a trouble because of the huge number. it is really simple and difficult compared to the prince's, and the people he brought with him, those soldiers, seem to be already hanging up. Chapter 107 Troop Mobilization. Chen Shi took the transfer order and went outside the city to prepare for the transfer of troops, but before he could pass, he saw a piece of soot and dust swirling outside, and soon stopped not far away, and then a horse came out and stopped in front of him. Zhong Bie turned over and dismounted and saluted Chen Shi. I have seen the county magistrate. Okay, Xianzhou doesn't need to be polite. I want to know if you still have a secret son in Qingju. Chen Shi did not have the slightest taboo and asked straight to the point. Yes. Zhong Bie hesitated for a moment and then opened his mouth. Well, you choose your own manpower, and then mix in the yellow turbans and wait for my orders. I don't believe it. More than 1 million yellow turbans can still know each other. Chen Shi said with a strange smile, after this incident, the troops you incorporated will be handed over to you to reorganize and become an independent army, provided that you can do a good job, are you sure? Zhong Bie was obviously a little hesitant this time. Following Hua Xiong for a long time, he was properly envious of Hua Xiong. When he encountered Mount Tai before, he thought that Hua Xiong was the commander of the infantry, but when he went down the mountain to become Hua Xiong's deputy general, he knew that there were still 3,000 Shiliang Iron Cavalry. Half a year ago Hua Xiong accepted military affairs and left. More than 3,000 Shiliang Iron Cavalry was actually handed over to Zhong Bie to bring. Accustomed to the cavalry, and then went to lead the infantry, Zhong Bie felt that he was really not used to it. Is there a problem? Chen Shi asked strangely. Logically speaking, such a thing as becoming an independent army is a good thing for generals. Why can't it work here with Zhong Bie? Well, I think I can lead cavalry. Zhong Bie said cautiously, not that he wanted to swallow Hua Xiong's troops, but just hoped that his troops would also have some cavalry. And now it was obvious that Taishan no longer had horses, and as for the cavalry, each of them was organized. This is not impossible. It is better to deal with emergencies with infantry and cavalry, and it is not easy to be restrained because of a single arm. I should do this. When Zijian returns to Mount Tai, there will be horses, but then you will need to train the cavalry, and the infantry and cavalry on horseback are completely two concepts. Chen Shi thought about it and agreed with Zhong Bie's idea. After all, it has not been expanded yet, and there are still a little resources on hand. Thank you, County Magistrate. Zhong Bie clenched his fists and saluted. It doesn't have to be like this. When I talked to Xuan Degong about the military system before, in view of the fact that individual arms are easy to be restrained, cavalry, infantry, and archers have their own advantages and disadvantages, so I suggested that it was a mixed combination, so each corps would have cavalry, but there were more and less. Chen Shi shook his head and said that this matter had nothing to do with him. The military system was just like this. If Xuangao is fine, go to Qingju as soon as possible to contact your secret son, and I will use you when necessary. Yes. Zhong Bie bowed and replied loudly, I will go to Qingju quickly. After arranging Zhong Bie, Chen Shi drove to Yu Jin's barracks. Looking at the barracks that occupied a wide area, Chen Shi wanted to say, how many trees do you have to cut down? Of course, that's a joke. In this era, there are more trees than people, and there are more wild animals than people, and the crocodiles south of the Yangtze River can't be killed. Stop. As soon as Chen Shi approached, a soldier came over to stop Chen Shi, but when he saw Chen Shi coming in a car, and he was dressed in a silk robe, he did not drive Chen Shi directly because of the jade pendant hanging from his waist, but ordered Chen Shi not to approach. When Zi is training troops, right, since that's the case, take this thing and let him come out. Chen Shi stretched out his hand and someone sent the order talisman up, and Chen Shi handed it to the soldier guarding the gate expressionlessly. These big-headed soldiers may not know other words, but they still know the word order on the order arrow. Take the order arrow with both hands, and bow to Chen Shi. Sir, please wait a moment, the general will come out soon. After saying that, he took the command talisman and ran towards the barracks. Chen Shi stood at the door of the barracks. Unruly in other places at most made others unhappy, and there was only one way out of the army for unruly rules. Even if he had a high status, Chen Shi did not want to leave the impression of a gentleman to the latecomers. I've seen the county magistrate. Yu Jin, who had a calm face, bowed to Chen Shi when he left the camp. The armor is not fully saluted, and I hope Chen Junsho Haihan will be the governor of Chen County. I'm here to mobilize troops. Facing the expressionless dead face of the ban, Chen Shi only had official business, and there was no way that the other party belonged to the type of person who easily did not contact the civil officials, and only did his own things every day. There are now a total of 56,000 recruits in the Taishan camp, of which 12,000 are regular troops expected to be incorporated into the establishment, and the remaining 44,000 are Tunshan soldiers rotated from other places, and are now being trained. Yu Jin's answer was clean and neat, without the slightest hesitation. Select 6,000 strong soldiers from the Tunshan soldiers to be incorporated into the regular army, kick out 3,000 weakest soldiers from the regular army into the Tunshan team, allocate 5,000 infantry to be handed over to Tai Shizi to take charge, and the rest will continue to be handed over to you to guard Fengao, and during the period when I go to Qingju to suppress bandits, once the enemy invades.
Chen Shi looked up at Yu Jin and asked. Swallow it. Yu Jin said domineeringly.
I think you know what the people who are coming are. The yellow turban is not too much of a problem. Once the new governor of Yangju appoints the governor of Taishan County. Chen Shi sneered twice and gestured with a chopping action. Xuande Guild will guard against the fish that slipped through the net in Qingju after I left, and your duty is the northwest.
Yes.
Yu Jin hugged his fists and bowed, and after training for so long, he was finally going to the battlefield. And the one with the most troops in the entire Taishan was not Guanzhong Zhao, nor Hua Xiong, but Yu Jin, who was in charge of training troops in the Taishan barracks. Just seek stability and hold the border between Mount Tai and Shanyang. Chen Shi nodded and said, talking to Yu Jin to keep a smile is very troublesome for Chen Shi, although he usually has a gloomy face when he is alone, but when there are people, he still has a little smile, and Yu Jin's coffin face is completely two personalities. Is it said that those who are good at training soldiers are all old-fashioned dogmatic life habits? After arranging Yu Jin, Chen Shi took the seal of his Taishan County governor to find Lu Su. There were some things he had to explain. Liu Bei personally defended Taishan and Jinan County, and the borderline of Qi State was not a problem. After all, there was Chen Shi in front of him, and there was Xu Chu as a guard by his side, and Liu Bei himself was also considered to have experienced the war, and it was not difficult to defend. Chen Shi was worried about Cao Cao. After all, after this time, Cao Cao would become the governor of Yangju with the strong support of Bao Xin and Chen Gong, and Mount Tai was part of Yangju, and the governor Cao Cao had a lot of methods to clean up, but in the end he still had to compete for hard power. Aside from others, the current Cao Cao is a tragedy. Xie Zhong in June last year did not catch up, and finally in Zun.
Moho Omicron Ju. The next thing to look at? Chimmy. Perch? Is it a joke? How often do steamers pasture? Mao. Is it normal? Frequently looking at the emperor, Long pressing the coin to panic? Zhu Ji is worth the shepherd to weigh the cover M? Knock on the hurried book oval and waving the salary loquat? Forgive the lazy. P. Jizhou and Yu Ju are fighting. Yuan Shao has no heart to care about Cao Cao's bad things at all. To be precise, Yuan Shao's confidence at this time is not as big as the confidence of the Jizhou family. He is not sure that he can beat Gong Sun Zon at all. By the way, if Gong Sun Zon is allowed to cede land for peace, Yuan Shao feels that he can accept it. Chapter 108 The Path of the King does not require allies. Yu Jin is stable enough, Lu Su is patient enough, and his ability is also sufficient. There are more than 10,000 people on the border in his hands, and even if Cao Cao has drama talent, it is not so easy to win Erxin and Chengyu, and the defense is much more advantageous than the attack, as long as the sideline can be guarded. When Chen Shi pushes the yellow turban back, the situation will be directly reversed. As for what trouble Cao Cao will have when he becomes the governor of Yangju, to be honest, there may be provocation, but in the end it still needs to rely on force competition. As for Cao Cao wants to grab grain in Zuzhu, Mount Tai, the gateway to Zuzhu, is locked. Cao Cao wants to live only one battle. As for other methods, don't think about it. Chen Shi had already estimated this, so now Liu Bei is willing to belong to the alliance with Dao Qian, Yuan Shu, and Gong Sun Zon, while Yuan Shao, Cao Cao, and Liu Biao belong to the alliance. Every time he thinks about this alliance, Chen Shi feels that his skin is beating. He really wants to ask why all his teammates are not powerful. If Yuan Shu takes the Jade Seal and becomes emperor after Gong Sun Zon pounces, then Liu Bei will only have a way to fight the world alone. But the problem is that Liu Bei wants to join the Shao League. That is a dream. For this situation that was doomed a long time ago, all Chen Shi could do was to rely on Zuzhu to develop Qingju as soon as possible. Under the protection of Gong Sun Zon, the current first force of the princes of Kwantung, and under the care of Zuzhu, a grain-producing land, to rise rapidly, at least before Gong Sun Zon pounced, otherwise wait to wander. Lu Su may have felt this kind of thing, so he has been a little sad recently. Liu Bei treats him very well, but this ally Lu Su is really not optimistic. Gong Sun Zon is still good. Dao Qian is already old. His heart is more than enough and his strength is insufficient. As for Yuan Shu, Lu Su has seen it. If he has been suppressed, he may still be a hero, but once he gains power, Lu Su feels that it is possible for Yuan Shu to stab no matter how big the basket is. So in this alliance, Lu Su always feels that he wants to kill him. Another reason why Lu Su was not optimistic about this alliance was because of the information sent back from Yuan Shao and Cao Cao, seeing that Lu Su was in a cold sweat, too wise and powerful, and he could still bend and stretch, and he was a proper hegemon. Lu Su is very entangled. He doesn't want to leave if he changes jobs. Liu Bei stayed for a long time. Lu Su really appreciates it. The wind of benevolence. It is because of this that Lu Su activates his brain every day to think about how to overcome obstacles and open a bright road in this situation. His teammates are not strong, the enemy is still very strong, and Lu Su's head is big. To be honest,
Lu Su doesn't believe that Chen Shi doesn't know this. Liu Yi may not be able to do it because of the problem of long-term vision. Guo will not tell others even if he knows. But if Chen Shi doesn't know, Lu Su is the first to not believe it. Planning for a rainy day has always been Chen Shi's habit. How can he not prepare? The problem is that Lu Su investigated many times, and he didn't see any backhand in Chen Shi. Lu Su didn't believe that he and Chen Shi had too much distance at all, if Chen Shi was ready. But he didn't see it. It was impossible. If Chen Shi was not prepared, it shouldn't be at all.
Zijing.
Chen Shi pushed the door directly in. Unless Liu Bei summoned all the civil officials, Lu Su basically did not go to the government office now, and stayed at home to do government affairs, and Chen Shi was also. Because of this, Chen Shi did not see Lu Su several times recently.
Zichuan.
Lu Su straightened up, did not get up to greet him, for Chen Shi no longer needed these false gifts. What is the matter here? This thing is for you, and you will temporarily act as the governor of Taishan County during this period of time. Chen Shi casually took off his seal and left it on Lu Su's case.
You go to conquer the yellow turbans? Lu Su frowned. Who am I if not me?
Among our group, I am the only one whose prestige can suppress the second master. Chen Shi casually found a seat and sat cross-legged. Kneeling, this kind of etiquette is very hurtful, and he often can't stand up.
Yes, only your prestige can suppress Yun Chang and the others.
Lu Su nodded.
What are you going to do with the yellow turbans?
There is no big problem. After all, Feng Xiao has arranged the tension point, and there is a lot of sand mixed in the middle, and it is estimated that the yellow turbans of Feng Xiao have been screened, and under the leadership of so many leading parties, the yellow turbans will not be able to cause civil strife for food. Chen Shi said casually, Guo arrangement is purely a group of conspiracies. The yellow turban must be robbed if he wants not to die, and if he robs it, there will only be civil strife. It's that simple. Lu Su nodded. He also knew Guo's arrangement, and got a bunch of second-rate Tunshan soldiers together, mixed with a lot of yellow turban bandits, and then got some food for the grain ton. In short, the yellow turban reached the front grain point, even if the farmers who killed the farmers in the fields were good for Mount Tai. That's right, the yellow turban is not a big problem. But what about the others? Lu Su raised his head to look at Chen Shi and asked. This time he wanted Chen Shi to hand over the bottom, and it was not a matter of guessing like this all the time. You and when are guarding against Cao Cao's sneak attack, although the relationship in the alliance was not bad before. But now, if you can't eat enough, everything is empty words. Chen Shi didn't think much about directly explaining this task. Zichuan, Cao Mengda's matter is not too much of a problem. No matter how fierce his civil and military generals are, my Taishan is not an ordinary role. If I want to plunder Mount Tai to enrich myself, I, Lu Zijing, will not let him take advantage. Lu Su said proudly, and then changed his subject, and asked with a calm face, I don't believe you can't see that Mount Tai is in danger of capsizing.
Overturned?
Chen Shi was stunned for a moment, and then reacted to what Lu Su was talking about, and nodded. You mean Yuan Benchu, Cao Mengda, Liu Jingxing are stronger than Gongsun Buigui, Dao Gongzu, Yuan Highway, right? Lu Su breathed a sigh of relief when he heard Chen Shi's words. Since Chen Shi said it, he must be prepared, so he nodded. It's nothing, don't worry. Gongsun Buigui will not lose to Yuan Benchu in the short term. As long as Yuju and Jizhou do not cease fire, we will not have any trouble. Even if Yuan Benchu wins in 3 or 5 years, according to our ability, Qingju has long been consolidated. Even if the strength of a state is raised, what is there to be afraid of in the face of Yuan Benchu? Chen Shi shook his head and said, to be precise, as long as there are no accidents in the general direction, we don't have to worry about any challenges.
Is that really the case? Lu Su looked at Chen Shi in shock and asked.
The king always walks alone on the road, and we don't need to ally with anyone. We can defeat all the enemies by ourselves. Chen Shi said proudly, the path of the king does not need allies, only enemies. Lu Su smiled bitterly. The guy in front of him is sometimes a complete madman, and he can't ask actual things at all. But fortunately, although the guy in front of him is sometimes arrogant and abnormal, his ability must be recognized.
Chapter 109 Necessary Things.
Chen Shi finally informed Lu Su of his general strategy. After all, one person is short, 2 people are long, and Lu Su himself is a strategic master, and he can also help Chen Shi check and fill in the gaps. I see, at first glance, such a strategy is difficult to implement, but if you think about it carefully, there are too many fits, and once it is achieved, your identity will be greatly transformed, and at that time, it will be officially put under the banner of Xuan de Gong, and the entire northern family will probably need to bet again. After listening to Chen Shi's strategy, Lu Su touched his beard and thought for a moment to recognize Chen Shi's idea. This is also the reason why I must suppress the Zhen family. In addition to being temporary, only the identity of the Zhen family is enough. In fact, the Zhong family of Qinghe and the Kui family of Jizhou can also be used, but there is no reason to start, and the Zhen family is easier to grasp than those 2 families. Chen Shi nodded and said, not that he must kill the Zhen family, but because subduing the Zhen family played an indispensable role in his entire strategy. For a little small profit and the head of the 5 wealthy merchants against Chen Shi is not so idle. You must know that the grudge between Taishan and the Zhen family before is just some wealth. Mizhu came to Taishan and said that the investment is about 100 million yuan, and now 100 million money is necessary for Chen Shi to spend so much effort to calculate. Taishan is not short of a little money, whether it is salt industry, paper-making, or wool textiles. The profit of any one is far more than the little profit of the Zhen family. If it is really for money, it is enough to pull out a hair on Chen Shi's body. Chen Shi wants the Zhen family's connections. The Zhen family has hundreds of generations, and the connections he has in Jizhou are what Chen Shi needs. If it weren't for his plan for the general trend of the whole world, Chen Shi would never hold on to the Zhen family for such a little thing. As a stable prince under the rule, any wealth is stronger than the Zhen family. When Yuan Shao and Gongsun Zon started a war to the emergency moment, the weight in Mizhu's hand was thrown out. For the sake of the whole battle situation, Yuan Shao would definitely abandon the Zhen family, and this abandonment and Liu Bei's benevolence at that time would definitely have a great contrast. This is the situation Chen Shi needs. He needs a family mixed with sand, and the higher the status of this family, the better. Your calculations should have been thought about when you return to Yingchuan, and the Zhen family is actually you. You pushed me to that point. Lu Su's face was slightly bitter. If the situation was settled so early, then Chen Shi should have selected all the talents needed at each stage. And what kind of role did he play compared to such a guy who saw through the general trend at a glance? The Zhen family was an accident, but this accident made me see other opportunities. But at that time there was no me family. I was not easy to operate. As for the overall situation, when Dao Gongzhu and Kong Wenju Bao Xuandagong were the governors of Taishan County, I began to design. Of course, I also selected the talents I needed at that time. Chen Shi smiled and said, and then remembered Liu Bei's expression when he didn't want to come to Mount Tai under the tiger prison, and the smile on his face was even greater, and then added, well, I chose a few sets of lineups at that time. There are me and Xingba in this lineup. Lu Su said tremblingly. Yes, you're one of the puzzles I have planned, and when my 2 friends come, even if this lineup is not the best, it is enough to withstand the most dangerous period. As long as we pass the most difficult period, then we. Chen Shi looked up, his eyes shining. The world can be expected. To that extent, it can be said that the general trend is established. Crazy strategy. It is estimated that no one except you has ever thought of doing this. Even Zun Wenruo's strategy is not as shocking as your strategy. You have always claimed that you are not as good as Zun Wenruo. I don't think so. Lu Su had an astringent face, trembled slightly, suppressed the trembling in his heart and sighed and said, and then estimated the chips in his hand. Chen Shi's strategy was very feasible. Zun Wenruo Qiang is all-powerful. I can guarantee that my general trend surpasses him, and the governance can overwhelm him. But he can unify all the forces under his command, and I can't do it. I know what to do. But I can't do it. I need help, even in governance. I write a plan and hand it over to you. I will do it myself. Chen Shi glanced sideways at Lu Su and said, this. Lu Su's heart moved, and he found that Chen Shi really didn't do it himself, either wrote the things and handed them over to him to deal with, or handed them over to Shenhe to deal with. As for himself, he had never seen it at any time except for making tea and eating snacks. I'm very poor at doing things, but I know what to do, and my habit is to leave things to people who are good at it. Chen Shi said indifferently, after all, he is not a person of this era. A lot of knowledge is superficial, supervision and unique thinking, as well as the experience accumulated over 2,000 years. These are enough for Chen Shi to solve most problems. But doing it in person is not at all experience and vision, and thinking can be done. Forget it, don't talk about this. You just need to know that a family son doesn't do anything by himself, only plans. Chen Shi saw that Lu Su was going to ask and waved his hand and said, he didn't want to dwell on these things, which would remind him of some bad things. Heh, I forgot that you are surnamed Gui Chen, and you are actually a royal family for hundreds of years, and the accurate statement should be that of Emperor Shun Yao Chonghua. Lu Su's face was a little ugly, but he didn't ask again, which is also why Chen Shi is also called a young master even though he is a side branch. None of this matters. The important thing is the issue of my current identity. In my plan, my identity definitely needs to be whitewashed. Once successful, whether I want to or not, my own bloodline will strip away the identity of the contemporary head of the Chen family, and integrate the Chen family into the new head of the family. Chen Shi shook his head and said, he also knew that the bloodline he undertook from his body was no joke. The reason why the family is required to be the right person is for the bloodline. It can be said that the blood of the late Eastern Han dynasty is the foundation of the family. Yuan Shu can make a Zhong emperor. In fact, it is also to look up to the ancestors. In this era, in addition to official positions, power, family assets, in fact, there are ancestors. Once the plan was successful, the position of the head of the family came. Chen Shi worshipped Liu Bei as the master. At that time it was directly equivalent to the reshuffle of the world's family, and all the previous bets needed to be rearranged, because Chen Shi's identity at that time was the head of the Chen family or even the head of the Chen family, no matter which identity represented one of the top families in the world. The Chen family completely fell to Liu Bei. This one is the most important thing. As long as this step is taken, the wind direction of the world will change. All the families need to think about it before doing it, and the biggest resistance before the problem of the family will be solved. At least in the short term, it is not a problem, and what Chen Shi needs is short-term cultivation, and after that period of time, a lot of trouble is no longer a problem. Chapter 110. Everyone is thinking too much. Oi. Chen Shi left, leaving Lu Su with a bitter face. Lu Su was a powerful man, and Chen Shi was a family. It was as simple as that, at least in Lu Su's opinion. Picking up the seal that Chen Shi put down, Lu Su felt for the first time that his fate was already predetermined, and he felt the horror of the 1,000-year-old family for the first time, and he felt that he was not far from Chen Shi before, but this time he understood that there were always some people who played chess, and he was just a piece of the puzzle. Is this the courage of a family that has been around for thousands of years? The best and the strongest gamble separately. Those who leave gain freedom, those who stay gain the family, and the one who survives is the head of the family. It is worthy of the courage of the 1,000-year-old family. Lu Su first said in a low voice, and then roared loudly, venting his inner dissatisfaction. Chen Shi naturally didn't know that the feeling he gave to Lu Su was not like an abandoned son of the Chen family, but a young master brother used by the Chen family to show the courage of the 1,000-year-old family, a young master brother who chose freedom, and Chen Kun, as the head of the family, was more like a family son who chose the family. Freedom and family, the best collision with the strongest, the surviving patriarch. This is Lu Su's feeling. Soon Lu Su mediated himself, even if Chen Shi would become the representative of the family in his eyes, but there was no mistake or omission in the entire strategy. But there was a kind of surprise, so Lu Su, who felt that he had become a pawn, was unwilling to abolish the public for personal reasons even if he was angry. I am Lu Zijing. My intelligence will not be weaker than anyone else. I will definitely break through this shackles. Lu Su's eyes flashed, and his heart was silently ruthless. Chen Shi's previous performance put too much pressure on him, and there were too many shocks, but these just stimulated his fighting spirit. Chen Shi didn't expect that his words would take Lu Su into the ditch at all, but he wouldn't explain it if he knew. After all, the beginning and the end were doomed, and no matter how much the process changed, the ending was not shocking. No matter how much he said, he didn't do it well. Anyway, as long as Lu Su was not blind, he could see what he was doing for, what family were floating clouds. After all, what Mount Tai wants is not to defeat the Yellow Turbans, but to turn the Yellow Turban into a population. By the way, Liu Yi said that he is very optimistic about Chen Shi, and he will be able to defeat the Yellow Turban Union this time. In short, Liu Yi does not plan to go. Forget it. Since Liu Yi was unwilling, Chen Shi had to give up the idea of asking Liu Yi to help. Since Xiang is unwilling, then let's defend the Qingyang border with Xuandagong. Zichuan, you don't understand what I mean. Liu Yi couldn't laugh or cry. There won't be much trouble at all after the Qingyang border is combed by you. Isn't it just that you put Xuandagong in that kind of place just in case the defense of Kaomengda fails, and then there will be a bigger buffer? What are you kidding? Chen Shi rolled his eyes and said, you think too much. I just make a random move. Can you not derive so many strange ideas? What strategic depth and buffer? Do you think Kaomengda can defeat us? Are you kidding? He couldn't get his hands free. What is strategic depth? Liu Yi grabbed the unclear words in Chen Shi's words and asked. It is the breadth that can be used for avoidance, evacuation, and movement. Chen Shi waved his hand and said, don't think wildly. Although Kaomengda is strong, it is not so easy to defeat Yu Jin and Lu Su head-on. Zichuan, you are from Yingchuan. You should know the abilities of those people. Although you don't want to admit it, none of them will be weaker than me. Liu Yi grabbed his hair and smiled bitterly. He was also self-aware, although he was talented and intelligent, but since he had faced it, he could be called a perfect Zun. Hydra. Oval. Wave. Camel helmet Lan Wanza Do and Hui hibiscus his robe fortunately broken and haggard. I know a little bit about it, but that's it. They can be regarded as the top characters in the world. Chen Shi nodded and said, but if Zijing is just defending, they don't have a good way. Zijing is too dull. Liu Yi directly expressed his senses. Although you may not believe it, Zijing's ability will not be weaker than that of the other side, but his reaction is relatively slow, but he is very stable and not good at tricks, which is why I don't leave you and Feng Xiaoshi Xiaoji next to Zijing, because your clever schemes may be countered by the opposite side, and Zijing, and when both belong to the role of winning instability. Chen Shi waved his hand and said, but since you don't want to, I won't say much, but you must obey Zijing's command when you stay in Fenggao, otherwise don't blame me if you are dealt with by Zijing. Okay. Liu Yi thought for a long time and then said, Liu Yi is always a little suspicious of Lu Su's ability. After all, Lu Su looks very wooden, and rarely shows himself, although he has a strong ability to judge, but he has not shown anything in other aspects. Chen Shi turned around and left. Since Liu Yi was not at ease, then he would not take Liu Yi. The strategist of the conspiracy-type Taishan had others. Guo Fengxiao stayed by Liu Bei's side to watch the scene. Even if he was calculated, Chen Shi would not worry. Then the only one who could take away was Fa Zheng.
Xiao Ji is up.
Chen Shi shouted loudly outside Fa Zheng's room. As for demeanor or anything, there was no need for it.
What's the matter, County Governor Chen?
Fa Zheng's messy clothes and long messy hair that had not been washed were over, and he poked his head out of the window and asked sleepily. I'm going to go on an expedition and need a mastermind. Do you dare?
Chen Shi asked. What?
Fa Zheng was stunned for a moment, then immediately came to his senses and shouted loudly. You say it again, I'll come down right away, wait for me. After saying that, I heard a jingle bell in the attic on the second floor, followed by the sound of going downstairs.
Wow!
Fa Zheng, who was wearing a boot, stood in front of Chen Shi disheveled, and asked excitedly, You say it again, what do you want me to do?
Okay.
Chen Shi ignored Fa Zheng, who was tugging at his collar with an excited face, and said word by word, I want to go on an expedition, and I lack a mastermind, do you dare?
Dare! Fa Zheng shouted excitedly.
Then let's go. If you can't beat Qi and Jibei County, you will wait to carry the black pot. Chen Shi looked down at Fa Zheng excitedly and said, Alas, I don't know how much filial piety you have.
I won't lose to him.
Fa Zheng instantly exploded as if his tail had been stepped on.
Oh, I hope so.
Chen Shi turned his head and walked outside. We will set off tomorrow. If I don't see you at the North City Gate at Chen Shu, I will set off directly. Don't think that I will wait for you. You have to understand what the situation is like to violate military law.
I will definitely go. Don't worry.
Fa Zheng said excitedly. I will definitely prove that you let me be your strategist is the most correct choice for you to go on this expedition. Ha 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 ha. I, Fa Xiaoji, have finally waited for the opportunity. Although I don't want to hit you, in fact, everyone else thinks it's not difficult, so I don't go, so don't get excited, wash and continue to take a nap. I chose you as the mastermind, and I was also drunk.
Chen Shi yawned and poured cold water on Fa Zheng.
Chapter 111 Can you guarantee that Liu Bei will remain unchanged?
Oi.
A long dragon clearly visible on the official roads of Qingju and Yangju slowly moved towards Qingju, and this was the army sent by Liu Bei to attack the Yellow Turbans. With Chen Shi as the commander, Fa Zheng as the military division, Guan Yu, Zhong Fei, Zhao Yun, and Tai Shizhi as the deputy generals, the 30,000 super-luxurious crusade corps mixed with infantry and cavalry. But now there is only one deputy general Sun Guan leading the troops, and the 5,000 infantry prepared for Tai Shizhi marching on this official road.
Why are you pushing it on my head if you don't want to ride a horse?
Fa Zheng said indignantly while sitting in the carriage. I hear a lot of people falling from their horses and dying, and don't you think it's much safer to ride in a car? Chen Shi smiled and quibbled. He could say that he could remember how to ride a horse, but in fact he had never ridden at all.
HMPH.
Fa Zheng shook his head unhappily. There is also the speed of the soldiers. Is it really okay for you to march slowly like this? Fa Zheng pointed to the army dragging its small tail outside the carriage and said dissatisfiedly. I'm afraid of death, so even if I take the official road, I sent scouts. By the way, if the speed of the soldiers can't change the situation, it's better not to do it, and it is appropriate to maintain the physical strength of the soldiers to deal with emergencies at any time.
Chen Shi said indifferently.
No wonder you put the sword and shield soldiers on both sides, and the spearmen are sandwiched between the archers and the shield soldiers, but I always feel that the line is a bit too long.
Fa Zheng nodded and said.
I put the most mobile cavalry at the end, and as long as someone wants to cut off the middle, I don't mind directly surrounding and annihilating them. Chen Shi said indifferently, I can't command troops, but I know how to deal with it, so I, the commander, have to do the same thing as you accept for prestige. Fa Zheng was helpless. After staying in Taishan for half a year, he was able to see Chen Shi's ability, although Chen Shi did not seem to be diligent, and he would never do what he could give to others. But Taishan County was in order under Chen Shi's governance. The population continued to increase, agriculture and sericulture business continued to prosper, and the treasury did not see the slightest loss. This method even Fa Zheng, who is now in the rebellious period, has to praise a can. Now Chen Shi said that he was going to do the same thing as Fa Zheng, and immediately Fa Zheng felt the pressure. When he left Fengzhou before, he thought he was out of the clutches, and the feelings were just out of the wolf's mouth and into the tiger's den, and he changed a person to adjust the X-teaching. Whether Fa Zheng wants to admit it or not, he can feel the gap between himself and Guizhou now, and this gap may take 3 to 5 years to make up. this is the truth. As for the person next to him, Fa Zheng is very suspicious of what the other party grew up with. He is 1 year older than him, but he feels that the gap is also so big. Chen Shi saw that Fa Zheng heard his words and changed color again and again, and then he smiled bitterly in his heart. How many times Guojiao was this guy every day? It was obvious that Fa Zheng had a psychological shadow. Forget it, give you a chance this time. I am different from Feng Xiao's bad taste. This time I won't speak. As long as you don't make serious mistakes, I will follow your plan. My existence is to suppress this group of people for you. The opportunity is only this time. The yellow turban is very easy to deal with, but please remember that the value of us people is manifested in exchanging the smallest loss for the greatest benefit. Chen Shi stretched out his hand and pressed it on Fa Zheng's shoulder, his body exuding a great and perfect light. Fa Zheng was stunned for a moment. Looking up at Chen Shi, happiness came too fast, so fast that he couldn't believe it. After all, I started planning the situation in the world at this time last year at Hulao Pass, and Zhuangdegang thought you should be able to do it, so I gave you a chance. Chen Shi patted Fa Zheng on the shoulder. Come on, we are all optimistic about you. Maybe the battlefield will mature after a while.
I will, Fa Zheng said excitedly.
Hatilda Chen Shi breathed a long sigh of relief. Or children are easy to deceive. Now there is an extra labor. Although I may not be good at planning by myself, but I will still modify. Our vision is still good. Even if Zhuangdegang knows in the future, it is also me to cultivate the new generation. Fa Zheng had no idea that Chen Shi would use so many means just to catch a laborer. Of course, judging from Chen Shi's previous series of performances, no one would suspect that this guy's strategy was very bad.
Li Ayu's home in Chang'an.
Li Ayu, who was pale and had an abnormal flush flashing on his face from time to time, was lying on the couch, listening to the report given to him by the servant at home.
Are you saying that you will abdicate on the day? Li Ayu asked with his eyes closed.
Yes. The servant bowed and said, I don't have much interest in living anymore, but the Shiliang forces I created with my own hands cannot collapse with the collapse of Dongxiong. Li Ayu's face flashed with a hint of loneliness, and he did everything he had to do, even if he reminded Dongzhuo this time. What could he do? How could he win the hearts of the people by going against the grain? Even the Shiliang iron cavalry he founded with his own hands is now beginning to appear deserters, and there is no hope. Hand this letter to General Guoren Li. Tell them that they don't need to worry about me, and tell them that as long as there is no civil strife, they can be rich and honorable for a lifetime, so take their servants and leave. Li Ayu handed the written letter to his old servant and waved his hand to the other party to leave. Seeing that the old servant bowed to him 3 times, Li Ayu's tears were about to flow out, but he still asked the other party to leave quickly, and he would only die tomorrow. After seeing the old servant leave, Li Ayu changed into a white filial piety robe and knelt down beside the table waiting for dawn, spending so much effort to create an army that was enough to look at the world. It's a pity, I was so proud at the beginning. I thought that I alone was enough to subdue the world, and I had the talent to seek the country, but I didn't have the ability to know people. Ridiculous, ridiculous. Li Ayu drank a glass of wine. Li Ayu basically didn't touch the wine before, because he felt that the wine would make his thinking less clear enough, and now only when he was drunk could he strip away his pain. Click. A cold wind blew. Li Ayu, who was originally full of alcohol, was quickly awakened by the cold wind, stared at the big man who suddenly appeared in front of him, and then lowered his head and continued to drink, without panic, without fear. His heart was about to die, and he would mind if it was a human or a ghost. Military division. Hua Xiong knelt down on one knee and bowed to Li Ayu. You go. Liu Xuande is a good lord. Li Ayu waved his hand and said, I don't want to join any princes anymore. Zhongying was so heroic at the beginning, but she is still impressed under this prosperity. Can you guarantee that Liu Xuande will never change? Chapter 112 Li Ayu and Jioshu. Military division. You will definitely die if you continue to stay here, so I must take you away, no matter what. We are all discovered by you and Dongxiong from the people and bandits. Dongxiong we have repaid with blood for 10 years. We do not owe kindness, and you and I have always owed it. I said when I surrendered to Xuandegong, I will not participate in any battle with Dongxiong. And I hope Xuandegong can allow me to recall my old friends. Hua Xiong half knelt on the ground and said solemnly, Fortunately, the Lord has taken pity on me and has granted my request. If you go, I will treat you with the courtesy of the head of the family, and Chen Zichuan's order does not bind me too much. You go. Li Ayu waved his hand and said, My heart is dead. I don't want to interfere in the affairs of the princes. Let's assist Liu Xuande well. He may become the new king. Remind him to be careful of Cao Mengde. This person will definitely do something big in the future. But it's a pity that Zhongying didn't subdue it at the beginning. It's a pity, it's a pity. Military division. Hua Xiong shouted lowly. You go. Li Ayu raised his head with murderous intent in his eyes. In the end, this world will still fall to the family. Where is the way out of the poor family? Where is it? Tell Liu Xuanda that the family cannot be worn out by the power of a generation, unless there is a great sage who can open the wisdom of the people and let the family gradually die. Otherwise, the family will never be destroyed. Hua Xiong was directly shocked by the huge spiritual power that escaped from Li Yu's body. This level of spiritual power was enough to erase all of Hua Xiong's thinking at such a close distance, making Hua Xiong a fool. Experiencing Dongjua***. The ideal was shattered, and Li Yu's spiritual power had been sublimated for the second time. Military division. Hua Xiong drank hoarsely. This kind of mental power was enough to endanger his life, but he still had to try. Hua Xiong's brain suddenly hurt, as if it was about to explode, but fortunately, it was only for a moment. But the pain of that moment directly made Hua Xiong, who was at the level of internal qi, soaked in sweat. At my level, even if it's Liu Bu, I don't want to leave, and he can't forcibly take me away. You go, Liu Xuanda is good, I hope you don't look away. Li Yu waved his hand to signal Hua Xiong to leave. He didn't want to live anymore, otherwise no one could stop him from leaving. Wang Yun, Liu Bu's level is nothing at all. Hua Xiong smiled bitterly and bowed to Li Rui, then turned around and left without looking back. Since Li Yu had reached this level, there was no way to persuade people to die. If Li Yu really wants Li Yu to explode all his spiritual power, not to mention Li Yu's life and death, at least Hua Xiong will probably go crazy even if he doesn't die. Alas, I don't know what kind of person Liu Xuanda is. The recruitment order, I really want to see Mount Tai. Ahem, cough tilde Li Yu said to himself, and then coughed one after another, quickly covered his mouth with white silk, and when he took it again, there was already a piece of bruise on it. Life is short. Hua Xiong rushed out of Li Yu's house in a fit of rage, and then jumped directly across the night sky and killed Joshu's house. Boom! He kicked open the door of the Zhou family, but found that there was no one in the Zhou family, and suddenly Hua Xiong's anger burned even more. This is the tunnel. Hua Xiong quickly found the tunnel where Joshu was hiding in the backyard, and then jumped down directly, not taking Li Yu back. And what could he say about the past? Did Joshu still want to run? No. How can there be pursuers behind at this time? Joshu, who was originally walking forward along the tunnel, was stunned when he heard the chaotic footsteps behind him, and then gritted his teeth and turned around directly. Taking his fate into his own hands is the king, and continuing to escape and negotiate. In Joshu's view, negotiation is a good way. Hua Zijian? Joshu was stunned for a moment when he saw Hua Xiong killing behind him, and then his mind changed, and he instantly smoothed out all his thoughts. Hua Xiong, don't knock me out, I have a way for you to take Li Wenyu away. Seeing Hua Xiong rushing towards him, Joshu said quickly. Sure enough, after Hua Xiong heard this, he stopped his attack abruptly, and the knife stopped at Joshu's neck. I think you should know that Li Wenyu has the intention of dying, and is willing to die according to his ability, so even Liu Bu can't stop it. Joshu did not foreshadow the slightest, and spoke directly, only simple and direct for the barbarians, and there was no need for anything else. Say the method. Hua Xiong said anxiously. But I asked you not to knock me unconscious after the incident. I think the reason why you treated me like this is probably because you think that I'm disloyal to Dongxiong. In fact, I have the same thinking as Wenyu. Since Dongxiong is no longer saved, then don't make the anger of heaven and the resentment of the people. Yongju can be stable for a day as soon as possible. As for the lives of the people of Shiliang, if I can't escape, I will say it myself. If I have left, they will see a way to save their lives in the hands of my old servants. Joshu quickly explained all this before Hua Xiong reacted. Hua Xiong was speechless. Can't Li Yu see it? Yes. Since Li Yu can see it, why not do it? Thinking of this, Hua Xiong was irritable for a while, and he also wanted to abuse Joshu, but now Joshu's reasons were sufficient, and the organization was clear and not what he thought at all, so there was no place to vent his anger. In that case, please take me to Zhou Mansion, and I will say goodbye to Wenyu, but before I notify, Zijian should not be discovered by Li Wenyu. Joshu tidied up his clothes and put on a crown, looking like a literati with a calm demeanor. Okay, I believe you, but if you sneak away, believe me, you are definitely not as fast as me. Hua Xiong had almost no thoughts. In his eyes, Li Yu was far more important than Joshu. Even if Joshu gave an explanation, the previous senses were still not eliminated. At an ugly moment, Joshu came to Li Yu's mansion by car. When he is actually interested in coming to see me. Li Yu, dressed in filial piety, sat in front of several tables, and a sword was placed on the table. Colleagues for several years, you and I both know each other. I will send you a ride, and then I will leave. The Shiliang army and the two of us have left arrangements. Presumably any of them is enough for Li Ji and Guo Sihuan's lifetime of wealth. But if these two are not suppressed, they will inevitably lose their old feelings, and in the end they will inevitably fall into the calculations of others. Joshu poured Li Yu a glass of wine, bowed, and then casually talked about the future. I'm about to die, they are willing to do it according to my arrangement, then there will be no less wealth in my life. If I don't want to, what can I do? Jo Wonher is so unhurried. Why don't you accompany me to bury Dong Seong? Lee Ah-yu took a sip of the wine in the glass, and then smiled loudly. I still have to watch the beliefs of those people shatter in their lives, and I have to collect the corpses for the two of you. Are you ready for the coffin? Joshu listened to Lee Ah-yu's words and instantly seemed to be furry, jumped back, pointed at Lee Ah-yu and scolded. As he spoke, Joshu stopped talking. I'm leaving, don't worry, I will remember to get you a coffin of golden Nanmu when the time comes. After saying that, he bowed, slowly retreated, got up and sighed after leaving the main hall, and left slowly. Chapter 113. It's all broken from top to bottom. It seems to be almost over. Joshu stood at the door of Lee Ah-yu's house and looked at the moon, looked left and right, and then shouted, Zijian. As soon as Joshu finished speaking, Hua Xiong fell from the sky. Done? You can go in now and carry when you out. I don't think there will be any problem for you to take the two of us out. Joshu pointed to the main entrance of Lee Ah-yu's house and motioned for Hua Xiong to enter. Lee Ah-yu's house was brightly lit, but there was no servant, so Hua Xiong walked in generously, and sure enough, Lee Ah-yu had fallen asleep on several cases, and Hua Xiong was overjoyed. Military division, military division, military division? After calling a few times, Hua Xiong found that there was no reaction at all, and without the slightest hesitation, he directly carried Lee Ah-yu on his back, ready to leave Chang'an to eat and drink in the dark, and then pay tribute to the Son of Heaven. Let's go. Hua Xiong waved towards Joshu after carrying Lee Ah-yu on his back, and killed directly towards Joshu's home. The protection of the city wall tonight was surprisingly tight. If Hua Xiong could barely slip out alone, it would be much more difficult to take two people. After one night, Hua Xiong had already organized his troops and led Lee Ah-yu and Joshu to the north to kill quickly, and when passing through the outskirts of Chang'an, Hua Xiong's keen hearing could hear the shouts and killings in Chang'an City, and after another section, all that came was cheers. Mr. Jo, is Dong Seong already so unpopular? Hua Xiong knelt in front of Joshu and asked bitterly. Not only is it unpopular, it can be said that many people want to eat its flesh and blood. He is no longer the original Shiliang Dong Zhongying. Joshu sighed and said, although I didn't appreciate Dong Zhongying at the beginning, I must admit that he was indeed a hero when he was in Shiliang, but unfortunately he was in a state of collapse since he entered Luoyang, and in the end when Yu's hard work was in vain. Hua Xiong was speechless, and the cheers in Chang'an City reached his ears, and how heroic Dong Zhuo was in Shiliang at the beginning, what a hero, and how a person he was, has never been static. What are you doing now? Your soldiers are good. Joshu stared at the soldiers outside and said curiously, silent and tenacious, orders and prohibitions, each of which was in line with the category of elite soldiers in Joshu's heart. I trained recruits in Mount Tai, that's it, as for what to do now. Hua Xiong smiled fiercely, go to the black and eat the black, and the Shiliang soldiers who dare to sell horses have insulted our pride. Recruits? Joshu was shocked. This kind of silent tenacity was very similar to Zhou Shun's trapped camp. It was not an elite that could be trained for a while. Well, the recruits are enough to challenge the strong soldiers trapped in the camp. Change the formation. The four armies are sharp arrows, the swords and shields are in front, the spearmen are second, and the bows and arrows follow. As he spoke, Hua Xiong roared loudly. A surprising scene appeared. The marching team directly changed its formation as required without the slightest pause, and then the fire clouds in the sky suddenly dissipated towards the edge, forming a bright red halo covering the soldiers on the edge, and the cloud of the arrow directly formed an illusory bow-like tip. Seeing this scene, Hua Xiong was also stunned, and actually appeared, like this situation belonged to the internal qi emitted by everyone in the formation, and the qi of heaven and earth appeared to be coordinated, and then smoothly distributed to the place where the formation was needed, and this can be said to be the favorite thing of every commander, because in this case, the strength of the troops will jump significantly. Basically, the troops who saw this situation in the war, and the commander of Guan Yu's level of the same troops brought the same troops to kill them, because in this case, every internal qi was used where necessary, and the power used by every soldier would bring its own comrades and the power of the formation. This situation can be said to be the highest goal of almost all generals, but due to the difficulty problem, there are few generals Hua Xiong who can achieve this level. After all, the troops that can absorb the internal energy emitted by the army and the qi of heaven and earth to form the clouds above their heads are considered good armies. As for the generals like this who can dissolve the clouds and balance the power in the clouds in the position required by the formation, Hua Xiong can only think of Jiao Shun. As for himself, it is obvious that this is an accident. After all, this is too high for the formation and morale, so high that it is almost a dream. The blades formed by the clouds were blessed on the edge of the army's blades, and the arrows were like a hole. Amazing! Joshu stared at the scene in front of him, I don't want me to underestimate you before, and I don't want you Hua Zijian to be a military trainer. Hua Xiong didn't speak. His own family knew his own affairs. This obviously belonged to the blind cat meeting the dead mouse. 50 times could not encounter such a good situation. Actually started to condense the general formation into a whole, and spread the clouds to the blade arrows, although the blade was obviously not solid, but this is already surpassing the vast majority of the army. Run forward, keep the formation, and the whole army accelerates. Hua Xiong roared loudly, taking advantage of the current momentum to kill directly and directly exterminate the group of scum who had betrayed the Shiliang Iron Cavalry. Although this distance is a bit far, it has no effect at all compared to this level of formation. Hua Xiong's 4,000 infantrymen drove over, and when a huge bright red light blade almost 100 meters long was cut directly in the direction of the grass shed where the Shiliang Iron Cavalry was building to eat, drink, then directly cut a large piece of light blade towards the place where the largest number of Shiliang soldiers like chopping meat filling, and blasted the land into a big pit, and no one crawled out. After doing this series of actions, Hua Xiong's face turned pale, and the original bright red blades of his soldiers also became lighter, and it is estimated that at most there will be another set of attacks of this intensity. The entire army will pounce, and the battle will be solved in 30 breaths, and the battle will not die on the other side, and the other party will be wiped out. Hua Xiong rode his horse to the more than 1,000 meters of land that had been plowed by his entire army, and there were many bodies buried under the soil, more of which were not dead, but they had already been frightened by this terrifying attack, and the coward who could only tremble in the soil spat a mouthful, and Hua Xiong said disdainfully, "Dregs, garbage." Hua Xiong slowly rode his horse through that place. None of the Shiliang soldiers buried in the soil dared to rush up. None of them dared to fight the whole army. They could only watch Hua Xiong lead the bandits to gather all the horses and lead them away, and then everyone got on their horses, turned around and left, and finally silently crawled out of the floating soil and hugged their heads and cried. Hua Xiong's face was filled with resentment. What about the vigilance of the Shiliang Iron Cavalry? What about the requirements of military training in the past? What about formations? What about the arrogance of the Shiliang Iron Cavalry? You can lose or lose. The only thing you can't lose is the determination to dare to fight, but now this kind of hiding in the dirt with his head in his hands is really his former teammate? Hua Xiong, who left on horseback, looked ugly. The Shiliang army was broken from the roots, all broken from top to bottom, hopeless, and could no longer become the kind of undefeated and strong army that once roamed the world. Your performance is not very good, Zijian. Liu Yu sat up and said to Hua Xiong, who was returning from riding a horse, I didn't expect that I was actually Yin by Jiao Wanhe, ahem cough. It's just a surprise. Jioshu smiled. Military advisor, you are awake. Hua Xiong said in surprise. Well, take me to see Mount Tai. Let me see Liu Xuande who dared to issue a recruitment order. I knew everything before, so I didn't need to tell me, although my body couldn't move, but my spirit was still sober. Liu Yu waved his hand to signal Hua Xiong not to care about himself. The Prime Minister should have been defeated. Hua Xiong was a little sad. It's just self-destruction. Liu Yu had already looked away from life and death, and the whole person once again became indifferent and elegant, and when he left Chang'an City, without that atmosphere, Liu Yu was no longer looking for death and life. Chapter 114 IQ is low and uneducated. Please also ask the military division to point out Xiong's previous mistakes. Hua Xiong saw that Liu Yu did not want to die, so he bowed and asked for advice. He, like most of the military generals in Shiliang, came from the common bandits, and had no opportunity to contact the strategy of the art of war at all. Jioshu was a little envious. He and Liu Yu were also strategists, and he thought that he would not be the slightest difference compared to Liu Yu, but the treatment was very different. Even if Dong Zhuo was defeated, Liu Yu was still respected by the soldiers of Shiliang. This can be seen from the fact that the first thing Li Yu and the others did in Chang'an in history was to ask Liu Yu for an official position, and then was rejected by Emperor Xian because Liu Yu poisoned the young emperor, and these two guys almost abolished Emperor Xian, forcing Emperor Xian to use this reason to show the strength of these two people's pursuit of officials. Hua Xiong still treated Liu Yu as a military advisor, respectful, and did not exceed the slightest etiquette. How rare this is for a Guanxi man. Let's not talk about what method your soldiers use to train, but I can see that they are really supporting you, but there is a problem with the way you command the troops. Liu Yu first praised Hua Xiong's subordinates, and then turned back to Hua Xiong. That kind of trick is too burdensome for you, although I am not very clear about the physical condition of the internal Qi level master, but the kind of move that mobilizes 4,000 people to use an obvious move is equivalent to your all-out blow, and the load on the body is too great. Your value should not be reflected in that kind of attack. Liu Yu said word by word, and slowly explained it like the practice of educating bandits, and horse thieves such as Li Yu, Guosai, and Fan Chou into generals. In order to abolish the combat ability of a general like you, in order to abolish a wave of attacks, you should distribute your strength to the blade. Maybe the strength of the straight attack is not as strong as yours, but the coverage is large, and that kind of attack is equivalent to replacing a row of soldiers with a general who refined chi into a gang according to Gongjing. Liu continued to explain, and he also saw that this group of silent and tenacious soldiers should be trapped in the camp. A row of generals in the early stages of chi refining into a gang. Hua Xiong felt that he couldn't close his mouth. Yes, Gongjing himself is not good at words, and he is notoriously upright, but unfortunately he is Lu Biyu's subordinate. Liu sighed, and with an attack like yours, even against the Shiliang Iron Cavalry led by Fan Chou at the beginning, he will be strangled. Sparse but not chaotic, and... Hua Xiong remembered what Liu said when he taught himself this group of cavalry. The formation of the Shiliang Iron Cavalry was very simple, sparse and scattered, but 3 or 5 people were an attacking group. Even if such a group was directly cut by his previous tricks, it would only lose hundreds of people, too scattered, and only the soldiers in that straight line were injured. Your attack is a deterrent attack, just like the bed crossbow we used when we dealt with Beigong Boyu, just to scare people. It can't decide the outcome, and it is really unwise to consume too much combat power for this attack, not to mention hurting the commander. Liu saw that Hua Xiong remembered what he had taught at the beginning, nodded and continued to explain to him how to lead elite soldiers. Because some commanders are too strong, and some generals themselves are very strong, like you, like Lu Biyu, you people can ignore the cloud protection formed by ordinary soldiers with a full blow. That is to say, the chi of heaven and earth and the chi spontaneously condensed by the soldiers are not enough to resist your internal chi, so don't make a dense arrangement at this time, just like the original Shiliang Iron Cavalry. The cloud chi is not enough to protect yourself. Liu gave several examples to explain to Hua Xiong. In other words, the Shiliang Iron Cavalry is consuming? Hua Xiong looked at Liu in shock and asked, he never knew this. Yes, at the beginning, but not later. But at that time our cavalry was already accustomed to that formation, and since it did not affect the combat effectiveness, I did not make any adjustments. Liu shook his head and said, the army itself will remember the tactics they used to use, which does not require training, because veterans will bring recruits and bring them the same as themselves. Shocked me. I have always thought that the Shiliang Iron Cavalry is the elite of the world. How could it be so weak? Hua Xiong was much relieved. The elite belongs to the elite, but there is still a certain gap with the top troops. Liu shook his head and did not agree with Hua Xiong's statement. As for Jioshu on the side, who silently turned his head to look out the window, the other princes and elites were calculated according to hundreds, and at most according to thousands. Your Shiliang Iron Cavalry establishment was directly 10,000, which can be compared. Quantity produces quality at any time. For example, how did the Flying Bear Army come about? You are now leading infantry, and there are a lot of people, and the troops have reached the level of elite. You can give up scattering, you need to have your own tactics that you are good at. Liu said categorically, the tactics of the Flying Bear Army are ruthless, the tactics of trapping the camp are stable, and the tactics of the White Horse Righteousness are fast. After getting rid of your own problems, you have to choose the direction of development. Military division, I still have 3,000 Shiliang Iron Cavalry in Mount Tai, that is, my troops in Shiliang before, and a deputy general who can form an independent army, holding 1,000 infantry, but the Lord has already said that these people are my subordinates before. Hua Xiong said, a little embarrassed. When Jioshu heard this, he turned his head to look at Liu, and the two looked at each other with thought. 8,000 mixed troops, it seems that Liu Xuande treats you very well. This kind of troops need very complex tactics, but the advantage is that it can cope with any troops, and there is no such situation of restraint. For example, if you encounter a White Horse Righteous soldier in the camp, you can completely annihilate the White Horse Righteous soldier in a specific terrain, which is fast enough, but the weakness is too obvious. Liu said quite contemptuously, he really looked down on this thing from Bai Ma Yi. The attack was high enough, the speed was fast enough, but the weakness should be so obvious. Please clarify the method of command by the military division. Hua Xiong said sincerely. You can't learn this method. I'll teach you a military formation that requires a variety of arms to use, and I'll teach you step by step, as long as you know how to use it. As long as you don't encounter too strong characters, it's difficult to crack. Liu shook his head and said that Hua Xiong's IQ was too low to learn, so he planned to teach him the military formations that could use all types of troops, so that he could practice more of the commonly used 3 or 5 variations. Jioshu was stunned when he heard Liu's words. He knew Liu's formation, and Hua Xiong's current soldiers were difficult to learn. There was only one formation, one of the ultimate changes of the Xuanxiang formation, Liu's enhanced version of the 8-door golden lock, a formation that could not be played without IQ. Chapter 115 Strategy and Planning the Time of Conflict. Chen Shi didn't know that Hua Xiong had won the lottery at all. Liu, who originally planned to bring this formation into the coffin, saw that Hua Xiong, the general he brought out of Guanxi, had such an elite, and planned to teach Hua Xiong his mastery of unique skills. Of course, Li Yu would not say what kind of formation this was, he would only turn the regiment commanded by Hua Xiong. Anyway, Hua Xiong would not learn. As long as he could rote and command, there would be 3 or 5 commonly used changes in 64 changes, just 1 or 2 killer moves. As for all 64 changes, Li Yu had no hope at all, unless he pressed Yoshu's head on Hua Xiong's neck, otherwise, it could only be a fool's dream. After that, marching slowly every day, Li Yu constantly explained to Hua Xiong how to use it, how to change the formation and other things, while Joshu held Li Yu and was about to die, and there was no need to taboo the idea of these things, listening with relish. Anyway, Hua Xiong was confused after 10 days, and Joshu had almost relied on Li Yu's explanation to push the formation map backwards. Of course, the original formation map was pushed out in reverse, but Joshu continued to deduce while transforming, so why should he have some of his own private goods when he takes it out in the future? Cao Cao in Yangzhou was angrily pushing the yellow turbans, because the yellow turbans were eating everywhere, causing Cao Cao, who had just been appointed as the governor of Yangzhou, to find that the entire Yangzhou was a mess before he could be happy, and food was needed everywhere, and he had no food. As for Yuan Shao, whom Cao Cao had pinned his hopes on, he was at war with Gong Sun Zon. Although he listened to the words of his strategists, Gong Sun Zon would be defeated sooner or later. But sooner or later, isn't this not defeated yet? Yuan Shao couldn't help Cao Cao at all. Jizhou spring plowing or something had been given up, and he didn't care about the great cause, so he Cao Mengda could point to the spring plowing to eat. Then there is only one way left, either grab or borrow, and after becoming the governor of Yangzhou, he noticed that Mount Tai was not ordinary wealth after broadening his vision. The boy named Chen Shi and Chen Zichuan are not ordinary capable. The guy named Zhao Yun and Zhao Zilong is a monster. His martial arts are almost unparalleled. He is actually knowledgeable in agriculture and sericulture, and he can also command cavalry. How did he learn this? After checking the grain production of Mount Tai, Cao Cao's eyes were suddenly blood red. About 10 million stones of grain production. Have you finished eating so much grain? Without saying much, the first thing Cao Cao did when he ascended to the throne was to borrow grain from Mount Tai, and borrowed grain as the governor of Yangzhou. But the IOU was stuck by Lu Su before entering Mount Tai. As long as Liu Bei did not receive the IOU, it didn't matter. Once Liu Bei received the IOU, then Cao Cao had great righteousness. As for the people of Yangzhou, didn't they see Liu Yi, Lu Su and others carrying out disaster relief? When Cao Cao learned of this, he was immediately furious and prepared to send troops to fight Mount Tai. But Lu Su and Yu Jin on the border of Taishan and Shanyang were also not to be outdone, and in an instant, the two sides were tense, and there was a situation where they disagreed with each other, and the Yellow Turbans struggled to capture the territory of Yangzhou at this time and empty every grain of grain in the invading land. Xiaoji, how is it? How to fight is up to you. Chen Shi calculated that the time was not too much, and if Fa Zheng didn't come up with a way, Chen Shi was ready to go it alone. Zichuan. Fa Zheng said with a wry smile, he had already thought of a bunch of methods. The problem was that if he wanted to ask Chen Shi for the kind of loss to his side with minimal loss and great profit, there would always be some flaws. Say what you think. Chen Shi looked at Fa Zheng with some disappointment. Fa Zheng bowed his hands and began to explain his plan. Isn't this enough? Why do you want to do so much? The more Chen Shi listened, the more he frowned. Whether it is breaking his army, or driving his soldiers, there is no problem with his arrogance and mind afterwards, and there is no problem overall. What if someone sees through it? Fa Zheng asked with his hands clasped. It is the possibility of being seen through the strategy. What you need is to use different strategies against different opponents. The Yellow Turbans are all thieves transformed by civilians who have not been exposed to the art of war. This strategy is enough. The strategist's plan does not need to be perfect. As long as it can defeat the opponent, we can't waste time anymore. I'll start first. You can watch. Chen Shi sighed, a little disappointed in Fa Zheng. Beat the drum and raise the tent. Chen Shi walked to the tent of the Central Army with his sword and sat in the first place. All the generals within a stick of incense appeared in the Chinese army camp, and Chen Shi stared at the sitting generals with a majestic expression. Since I reorganized my army out of Mount Tai and entered Qingzhou, all the generals said that they wanted to fight the Yellow Turbans, but millions of Yellow Turban soldiers came out of Qingzhou. The situation is unclear. I don't want to take risks. Now the situation of the Yellow Turbans is clear. The generals are willing to help me defeat the Yellow Turbans in Qingzhou. Chen Shi said arrogantly with his sword, although he handed over the plan to Fa Zheng during this period of time. But he didn't do anything. At least the spies who were mixed in the Tunchen team have now mixed into the Yellow Turbans, and several have become Centurion levels. Give it to me, Lao Zhong, and kill one with my Lao Zhong snake spear. Come to 2 old Zhong snake spears and string 2. Zhong Fei's chest slammed. Sir, Do you already have a way to break the yellow turbans? Guan Yu ignored Zhong Fei's words and gestured to Zhao Yun with his eyes, and then Zhao Yun stood up and asked. The yellow turban is just that. If I don't want to take in the yellow turban strong, I will defeat the yellow turban before. Chen Shi said with an arrogant face, at this time, it must be a loser, not to lose. Besides, no one has lost yet. The generals obeyed the order. Yun Chang sat in the central army, and followed me all the way to defeat the Qingju yellow turbans. Ida, Zilong, and Zi each led 1,000 cavalry to drive away the yellow turban defeated troops everywhere, not to be killed, but only to drive away by the tail, so that his defeated army could attack the yellow turban bandits behind him until he hit most of the yellow turbans. Zhongtai led the infantry as the rear army, rebuilt the Tuncheon point, incorporated and managed the refugees, and rationed food. Chen Shi said calmly, in fact, he really wanted to say that the yellow turbans had great internal contradictions because of the food problem, especially now that they were very scattered, and once a big rout was formed, they might run away in a swarm. Yes. The generals replied loudly. Sichuan, we won't have anything to do this. Seeing that the generals were leaving, Fa Zheng asked with some concern, after all, I haven't devised the best way yet. It's too late, we must sweep away the yellow turbans in mid-May, otherwise, winning will be just a burden that drags us down. Xiaoji, you must remember that all tactics are ultimately for the final strategy. For the sake of some strategies, you can give up something when necessary. Tell me, what is our goal? Chen Shi still maintains the habit of counting days with his fingers broken, and he can still distinguish the priorities. Peace the world, support the Han family. Fa Zheng didn't even think about it. Guangfu Han dynasty needs people, so our overall goal can be changed to as few deaths as possible, and once we drag on here through mid-May and have not solved the yellow turbans, even if I have no time to build Tuncheon with my ability, it can be said that I can't catch up with summer planting at all, so that we will need to feed almost 2 million people without food by June next year. Chen Shi said with a dark face, even if Dao Qian is generous, you let him try to give 2 million people a year's food. Chapter 116 Eating Well. Eating well is benevolence. Fa Zheng is not a fool, he has been thinking about how to defeat the yellow turbans before, and he didn't pay attention to anything else, and when Chen Shi mentioned it, he instantly understood what the biggest problem was at present. It can be said that there are more than 2 million women, children, old and weak who are really stress-free, and once one of the 5 grain-producing lands, if it is not dilapidated, the population may be more. Fa Zheng's face was extremely ugly. He already understood the disadvantages of continuing to think about the best way, because there was not enough time. Once the danger line was crossed in mid-May, even if Chen Shi had the means to reach the sky, he would not be able to carry out the farming before the end of June. Once you can't catch up with the Tuncheon, then the prisoners brought by the defeat of the yellow turbans will be directly converted into a burden, and once the people have no food, then rebellion is a matter of one sentence. As for the burden is all killed, you have the name of benevolence. Do you still want to take off? All Chen Shi's plans revolve around Liu Bei's name of benevolence and the population is turning. Regardless of whether Liu Bei is cheating or showing, there is no difference between pretending to be benevolent and righteous for a lifetime and being real. So let's use your previous method. The loss will be bigger, this time Qingju, which accounts for about 20%, we will be able to swallow the entire Qingju next year, so that my grand strategy can be barely implemented, and if it is implemented earlier, one more life can be saved. Chen Shi patted Fa Zheng on the shoulder. As a strategist, don't just stare at the battle situation. The situation off the field is also very important. As Chen Shi expected, the 3 small leaders of the yellow turbans themselves could not make trouble together. After all, there was a shortage of food, and their respective subordinates had a lot of manpower. In addition, the yellow turbans themselves are equivalent to an unorganized refugee group. The whole team is extremely scattered, there are often internal conflicts, and often the soldiers cannot find generals, and the generals cannot find soldiers, so it is not so much that the yellow turbans are bandits, but rather beggars who loot everywhere, but these beggars are huge. Since Chen defeated the floating clouds and the 3 Qian people overturned, they each took hundreds of thousands of their men to plunder everywhere, but Yangju was poor and there was not much food at all, and soon they set their sights on Mount Tai, and then invariably marched towards Mount Tai, but because their respective teams were too large and difficult to control at all, the so-called advances were actually wave after wave. It can be said that except for the tens of thousands of weapons that Fuyan, Chen Pai, and Hu Qian consider elite in their hands, or the elite infantry with armor, the others are actually completely coerced refugees, or refugees who come to grab some food because they have no food to follow. To deal with this kind of bandit without organization, discipline, and weapons and equipment, Guan Yu led the Chinese army to crush all the way, directly defeating all the yellow turbans that met them, and of course, there were also some who saw that Guan Yu was not very vicious, and directly asked for surrender. For this kind of thing, Chen Shi doesn't care whether the other party is a spy or not, all of them are handed over to Sun Guan in the rear. Anyway, all the back is military control, and the troublemaker is a kill regardless of whether there is a reason or not. In Qingju Chen she asked Zhao Yun and Tai Shitsi to bring at least 30,000 Tuncheon soldiers. These Tuncheon soldiers can't go to the battlefield, militarized management is still possible. And Chen she doesn't mind dying in the last batch, at this time to seek stability, as long as someone makes trouble without going through trial, directly death penalty. Chen she can't do it in troubled times. Chen she feels that 11 whips can be done when necessary. As long as the situation can be stabilized, Chen she will not mind using some extreme means. Yun Chang, how many refugees have we gathered? Chen she felt that he was now fighting a tailwind and picking up prisoners. There are about 200,000 refugees, and most of them are young and strong women Guan Yu said with some excitement. Although this kind of battle does not have too many big battles, it is the best way to earn military merit. Set up camp and rest, make broth steamed buns in the evening, and order Ida, Zilong, Zi, Zhongtai, and return to the camp to discuss matters. Chen she ordered at Guan Yu. Yes, camp on the spot, bury the pot and cook, make meat soup at night, and patrol the camp with personal guards. Guan Yu ordered towards the herald. Speaking of meat soup, don't think about beef, mutton is too expensive, pork is not enough, but chicken and duck meat are still a bit. Anyway, the eggs hatch chicks, and they can be slaughtered after a few months, and the flock of hens is picked up and handed over to Chen Shi's servants to raise outside the city, and after a while, they are slaughtered to fill the military rations and improve the food. So for this group of big-headed soldiers who have never seen meat, it is really good to have meat to eat. Lu Su Liu Yi also complained about improving food. After all, it is already good to be a soldier in this era, and after a period of time, supplement meat, and burn more money. As a result, after Chen Shi calculated the account once, Lu Su and Liu Yi felt that it was better to replenish the meat for the big-headed soldiers on time, and there was not much money, and they would not be deserters if they had a sense of identity with the food. Even if they became deserters and mixed with other princes, they were used to eating meat every 10 days, and they went to eat the pig food of other princes. And maybe they could fool a few soldiers back from other princes. Raising a new recruit into a veteran is far more expensive than giving the veteran a little more to eat and train a little so that he doesn't die, and the combat effectiveness of the veteran is completely several times that of the new recruit, so it is better to find a way to train the veteran not to flee, don't die. Well, Chen Shi doesn't believe it, and which prince can give the big-headed soldier meat twice a month? Not to mention that chickens and ducks are not valuable, whether you have it or not is a problem. After this idea was studied by Lu Su and Liu Yi, he could only say Zichuan, how your brain is constructed, which is too unscientific compared to the previous kind of ironclad soldiers, but it is very effective. In this era, being a soldier is just to make a living, and if you can get a little military salary, there is nothing to say about where to be a soldier, so it is not impossible to win over the soldiers under your command by relying on 1 or 2 bites of meat like this. On the contrary, it is very possible. Every time there is meat to eat, it is the most exciting time in the barracks, and the aroma of meat not only floats all over the camp, but even the refugees outside are aroused by greed. A large number of refugees gathered outside the barracks, although they gathered a black oppression, but none of them dared to attack the barracks, they could only wait silently outside, and someone had stormed the barracks a few days ago. Every time it was crushed into meat puree by the other party. After all, at this time every day, someone would come out to collect the refugees, and then take away those who were willing to go with the officers and soldiers, saying that they would go to the rear to divide the fields and seeds. Of course, the vast majority of refugees do not believe these words, but every day there are people who succumb to hunger because they can't stand it, and surrender to the officers and soldiers with the idea that even if they are pulled to the rear to make jerky, there will be at least a full ghost, and of course, there are also some refugees who have heard of the situation of Mount Tai, and they will surrender when they see the banner of Mount Tai, and some secret sons who promote the benevolence and righteousness of Duke Xuanda will bring a large number of young men to vote. In short, there are all kinds of things. Chapter 117 The Necessity of Literacy. Xiaoji, distribute steamed buns to the refugees, be willing to accept the bowls of broth managed by Mount Tai, supplement all the soldiers with 3 pieces of air-dried chicken, tell them that if there is no opportunity to stop the army to cook tomorrow, they will all eat dry food, let the rear camp prepare cold boiled water, and tell them that whether it is with gourds or bamboo pipes, they must bring enough dry food and water, and I will see the head of the yellow turban leader within 3 days. Chen Shi looked at the refugees gathered outside the camp and turned to Fa Zheng and said, with this news, Chen Shi no longer plans to play any arrogant strategy, directly defeat Chen Bai, and let Zhong Bie lead the defeated soldiers to attack Fuyun and Hu Qian himself to strangle behind him. Chen Shi didn't believe it, just the scum of Fuyun and Hu Qian could control his own situation in that situation, and hundreds of thousands of defeated troops rushed over and had the ability to stabilize their own army and not follow the route, then it was not the yellow turbans, that was the ancient famous general, plus the leaders were all the elites of the world. In this case, No strategy is as good as a brainless push. As long as Chen defeats is bulldozed, then the defeated army will crush all those who stand in the way like a snowball. From this point of view, once human beings enter a state of panic-blind obedience, 100,000 people are really not as good as 100,000 pigs, and it is better to have no IQ. Fei Zheng definitely didn't expect Chen Shi to be so *** and directly planned to drive more than 1 million yellow turbans as sheep. Chen Shi would not tell Fei Zheng that when this method first appeared, everyone must have been in disbelief, but Chen Shi was very confident that he could definitely complete it. If there was no Zhong Bie leading the fleeing soldiers, the direction might not be guaranteed, but now.
Wait for the tail to chase.
At 3 o'clock in the afternoon, Zhao Yun, Zhong Fei, and Tai Shizi, a group of cavalry who were driving sheep, finally rushed back under the greeting of the herald. Zilong, Ida, Zi are doing well. Zhong Tai's military control is a little loose. Chen Shi sat on the main seat and bowed to the three of them, and said sideways to Sun Guan, but there was no intention of punishment. After all, Sun Guansai had a good grasp of moderation. You can establish your power when necessary.
Chen Shi's eyebrows showed a murderous aura. Yes, Marshal. Sun Guan stood up and replied.
I asked you to wait for me today, because the Yellow Turban commander led about 100,000 Yellow Turban bandits in the front, ready to defeat us, and then go to the rear to eat. What I want you to do now is to defeat the other party with thunderous force. What a terrifying trick you can use tomorrow. What a terrifying trick to me. I want to see the result within a quarter of an hour.
Chen Shi said with a majestic face. Xiaoji and I will do our best to coordinate the army for you. Yes. The generals stood up and replied loudly.
Each of them will leave 1,000 infantry as a reserve, and tomorrow morning they will leave the camp and defeat the Yellow Turbans.
Chen Shi directly gave the order. Yes. The generals replied loudly.
After distributing military affairs, Chen Shi asked several people to go back to reorganize the troops, and then asked someone to call Fei Zheng Fazheng. Xiaoji, are the dry food departments ready? I distributed the jerky directly to the departments, and then let them distribute it to their respective soldiers. Zichuan, are you sure that this battle will be fought for a day? Fei Zheng asked a little strangely. Why did he suddenly distribute dry food? Would 100,000 Yellow Turbans really fight for a day? And even if you fight for a day, you should give hot food, dry food, or something is not suitable. Well, it will be played for a long time, and there is no opportunity to stop cooking during this period, so it is better to give dry food after all.
Chen Shi said with a smile.
Oh, so we're going to flee, but have you thought about where to ambush? And this kind of route is very demoralizing, and there is also a great loss of physical strength for the soldiers. Pure dry food is probably not good. Oh, no wonder the jerky has to be sent down, so that it is basically enough for the soldiers to escape. At least there is no problem within 3 or 5 days.
Fei Zheng made up Chen Shi's thoughts like a barrage of cannons, and then nodded confidently and said, Probably.
Chen Shi's face twitched. He felt that he didn't need to explain. Fei Zheng had already made up all the plots in his mind, and he didn't need to say anything anymore. By the way, I asked you to add some salt and sugar to the boiling water. Did you add it?
Chen Shi asked on a subject.
We don't lack salt. If the amount of sugar is not enough, it's all poured into it. The amount of salt and sugar you said before is about the same. I think it's really about the same. Fei Zheng didn't ask any more questions, thought about his previous situation of boiling salt and sugar water, nodded and said, That's it, let all the bamboo tubes for the soldiers be filled with this, and tell them to drink this when they are thirsty when they run tomorrow. Anyway, they must not stop.
Chen Shi turned his head sideways and said to this Fei Zheng.
On the other side, Chen Pai was gnawing on pig's trotters, arranging tomorrow's battle. The previous battle book was still written by Zhong Bie with help, and there was no literate person in the entire camp, and then Zhong Bie expressionlessly wrote the arrangement of Chen Pai's 3 troops in the war book, read it to Chen Pai and then asked his subordinates to send it to Chen Shi, which is the origin of Chen Shi's intelligence. Chen Shi's orders were also generously written in the war book, blatantly transmitting information, but unfortunately there was no one in the entire Yellow Turban who could read. But if he could read, he still needed to be a Yellow Turban. In this era, as long as those who can read are rare talents, where can they not have a bite to eat? Marshal, as long as we defeat each other and rely on the grain of Mount Tai, we can expand on a large scale, and then become a prince.
The Marshal may not be able to do a good job, Zhong Bie said with a flattering face.
Zhong Bie, who was born as an intellectual and had been a bandit for many years, fooled this group of unseen Yellow Turban new generation leaders. It was simply not difficult, and now Chen Pai was almost blinded by the bright and beautiful future, and he didn't know what his name was, and he arrogantly prepared to defeat the other party tomorrow, and then take him under his own hands to create an imperial foundation. Similarly, the 4 right-hand men under Chen Pai were also fooled by the sentence the Prince and General Xiong Ning has a kind that Chen Shengbiao came out 400 years ago, and he said that a certain lame cadre who was fooled by Zhong Bie looked at Chen Pai's eyes were a little wrong. Well, this is the Prince and General Xiong Ning has a kind. Although the situation is excellent now, Zhong Ba is still not at ease. The number of yellow turbans is too much, and after seeing the destructive power of more than 1 million yellow turbans, Zhong Ba's confidence in Chen Shi's plan is obviously insufficient. What does it mean to let him Zhong Ba run in the direction of Fuyun after Chen Bei's defeat, and then run in the direction of Hu Qian after Fuyun is defeated, and then after Hu Qian is defeated, he runs on the plain, running until the yellow turban can't keep up at all, and then collapses? This seems very simple. The problem is that Chen Zichuan is sure that you can beat these more than 1 million yellow turbans with their heads and rats.
In other words, it will take a long time to capture more than 1 million yellow turbans. Chapter 118. The enemy general is our man. Yun Chang, tell Ida not to speak when you see anything later. Chen Shi stood on the frame and turned his head to Guan Yu and said, "Okay." Guan Yu still cherishes words like gold. Yun Chang also goes to the front. Xiao Ji and I are enough here. With your army in front, if it is still not safe, then there will be no safe place on the entire battlefield. Chen Shi signaled that Guan Yu could lead the army to the front, and there was no need to sit in the central army to protect them. Zhongtai ordered people to be optimistic about the handsome flag, although we do not rely on the command of the handsome flag, but this is a morale problem after all. Chen Shi ordered Sun Guan on the side. Yes. Sun Guan said loudly, and then personally led people to protect Shuai Qi. After all, according to Chen Shi's arrangement, Shuai Qi or something had to be killed. I always feel like something is wrong. Fa Zhang listened to Chen Shi's arrangement and frowned and thought. He always felt that something was wrong with Chen Shi's arrangement. Don't worry about whether it's right or not, let's use mental power to coordinate the formation. It is a little less to die, there are still too few doctors, and there are too few clean cloths for bandaging, and the medical alcohol can't be made, up to 60 degrees, and it is often stolen. Chen Shi looked in the direction of Zhong Fei angrily. He finally had a little food. He made a little spirits to disinfect, but Zhong Fei secretly drank a lot as wine when it was transported. Ahem, Zichuan, pay attention to your demeanor. Your spirit is indeed good, but it consumes too much food, so it shouldn't be produced. Fa Zhang glanced at Chen Shi, and then said righteously, "Food is not as valuable as veterans. Children don't understand. When I go back, I will give you a copy of my price list, and you will know how to calculate it." Chen Shi directly ignored Fa Zhang's words. After all, the Lu Su he did was not blind, and if he didn't give a reasonable explanation, Lu Su couldn't pass their price list. Fa Zhang was a little unclear. Fool, that is, the losses of war and the strategic gains are distributed to the actual individuals and goods and the losses and gains. For example, the price of fighting the yellow turbans is that I will die, then the loss is a mess, then this battle has no value in provoking. Chen Shi glanced at Fa Zhang with contempt, and then thought for a moment to give an example, how to say that Fa Zhang still needs to be cultivated. Hearing this, Fa Zhang's eyes lit up, so Chen Shi gave another example. For example, the price of fighting the yellow turbans is that you die. In this case, we calculate that Qingju still has your value, and feel that although the gain is greater than the loss, but in the long run, the gains outweigh the losses, so there is no need to put you in because of the victory of the Battle of Qingju. You guy! Fa Zhang said indignantly, but he was still very satisfied with what Chen Shi said about the comparison between Qingju and him. This is the price comparison, of course, the kind of mind I just said. I still list a price list for some other commonly used things. For example, we can ensure a low mortality rate in each battle, but we need to consume thousands of stones of food. At this time compare the value of veterans, the value of morale, the value of positive effects. 1,000 stones of grain is worth investing. Chen Shi helped Zhao Yun and others increase the regulation of the qi and formation of heaven and earth, while explaining these things to Fa Zhang. As for Fa Zhang, he couldn't say anything, he could only listen to Chen Shi's example, so he was envious of Chen Shi's light spiritual power. Almost. Chen Shi clapped his hands. The flow of cloud energy in the military formation was stabilized with mental power, and there would not be much problem in a short time, and when the blood and qi of both sides surged after a while, the cloud energy would be gradually fixed by the overflowing blood and murderous energy, and there was no need to worry about their own cloud blessing being washed away. Of course, this kind of fixed blessing of blood and murderous qi is in the battlefield, and when the hostility dissipates, the originally fixed cloud blessing is gone. Chen Shi looked at Fa Zhang sitting on the frame with a pale face, and was amazed. Your mental amount is too small, and the flow of clouds of 10,000 people has been adjusted like this. It's really weak. Fa Zhang didn't even have the spirit to scold back, so he could only barely deal with Chen Shi with his eyes. Young man, practice more. Chen Shi squatted down and patted Fa Zhang on the shoulder, then spread his mental power to connect the two clouds that were not very harmonious, and sorted out the clouds controlled by Fa Zhang. You must know that his mental capacity is very large. Are you really human? After resting for a while, Fa Zhang stared at Chen Shi for a long time and spat out such a sentence. Chen Shi shook his head, looking lonely at the sky,
and after a long time, he said unsalty, "You don't understand my loneliness." Fa Zheng was choked to death halfway. At this moment, the yellow turbans finally lined up in a twisted line, holding a cloud of earthy yellow clouds, holding tattered weapons, marching over. Seeing this situation, Chen Shi wanted to rush up, but thinking about his own strategy, the frontal fight was much better than the sneak attack effect. Without waiting for Chen Shi to speak, a puma jumped out on the opposite side. It seemed that he was here to call for formation, but Zhong Fei and others took a closer look, and directly extinguished the idea of going up and letting go of the other party. This is simply a joke. The other party's general is directly a spy inserted by his own side. This is here to pick up meritorious deeds. Immediately, Guan Yu and Zhong Fei understood why Chen Shi wanted them to see nothing and not make a sound. "Zhongtai, you go up and try. Give you a chance. Xuangao will release water. Go up." Chen Shi turned his head sideways and greeted Sun Guan, who was guarding the handsome flag behind him. "Ah, okay, obey." Sun Guan was directly frightened by the shape opposite his boss, and when Chen Shi greeted him, he immediately turned over on his horse with a smile on his face and rushed up with a gun. "Isn't this Zhong Xuangao?" Fa Zheng felt his face twitch. He had seen this goods leading more than 3,000 cavalry running in circles several times outside Fengao City, and now he had actually turned into the leader of the yellow turbans, which was too good. "How about my spy?" Chen Shi asked with a smile. "It's all like this. The yellow turban can still win. I'll give you the head." Fa Zheng said excitedly. Zhong Ba mixed a high-ranking leader in the enemy army, and he was worried that his strategy would not work. "What a joke. What's the use of asking for your head?" Chen Shi turned his head contemptuously, and the angry Fa Zheng was angry. "A certain Sun Zhongtai from Mount Tai, the enemy will be killed." Sun Guanren arrived before he made a sound, and a puma came out and stabbed Zhong Ba with a gun. "It's good." Zhong Ba roared. Originally he planned that Guan Yu and Zhong Fei, the ticket man, would come up and stab 3 shots and run away, but he didn't expect that the person who came was actually an acquaintance, and now he didn't need to affect his wise and martial appearance in the yellow turbans, and he also had to rely on this shape to gather the yellow turban defeated army, lead them to escape, and set up the light of greatness. Crackling immediately fought. The two sides played chess to meet the opponent. Will meet the good talent, just the victory or defeat. See the blood of the soldiers on both sides. Morale soared. As for Guanzhong, Zhao Tai Shisi and the force silently counted the horses' manner, preparing for Sun Guan to retreat, all kinds of big moves to greet the yellow turbans. Chapter 119: The Yellow Turbans Who Fled. Oi. Sure enough, after Sun Guan and Zhong Ba fought nearly 100 moves, Zhong Ba shot through Sun Guan's ribs, and then Sun Guan pulled his horse and fled. "Shoot!" Guan Yu roared, and in an instant, the clouds of the entire army began to operate, and a huge blade slashed directly from the direction of Guan Yu's troops, and then drove all the troops to kill forward. The nearly 300-meter-long super-large Qinglong Yangyu knife-shaped light blade, with a blessing of the military formation composed of 30,000 soldiers behind him, every line was clearly visible, and the sharp turquoise light blade wrapped around the aura from Zhao Yun, Zhong Fei, and Tai Shitzi, exuding 7-colored light, and slashed fiercely on the earthy yellow clouds formed by the yellow turban army. The 7-colored aura from the others was consumed by the earthy yellow clouds of the yellow turbans, and the huge light blade slashed through the yellow turban central army with an almost unstoppable momentum. After Guan Yu took the lead, Zhao Yun drank lightly, the spear in his hand shook, and the pear blossoms covered a range of hundreds of meters in an instant. Zhong Fei manically hit a black shock wave. Tai Shitzi threw a light blade in the shape of a square sky halberd with a length of almost 200 meters in the direction of the yellow turban army, and then took out the treasure eagle bow and pulled it away, and a large piece of golden fine arrow wire exploded in front of the yellow turban, directly enveloping a radius of more than 100 meters. Within 5 breaths, Guan Yu, Zhong Fei, Zhao Yun, Tai Shisi emptied all the internal qi and clouds that could be mobilized by themselves, but the yellow turban was also emptied in a large area, and the roar ended. Chen Shi made a loud noise, and the wooden folding fan in his right hand slowly opened, waving in the direction of the dust. The wind swept away the clouds, the smoke and dust were gone, and a large pit with a radius of nearly a kilometer was directly cleared out of the middle of the more than 100,000 yellow turban army. Both the enemy and us stopped, and neither dared to move, and at this moment Sun Guan roared, "Kill the enemy." Then a puma came out, and the Taishan soldiers were full of morale in an instant, and directly followed Sun Guan towards the yellow turban army, and then the yellow turban army was all defeated and turned around and ran backwards. "All pursue." Chen Shi roared hoarsely. The situation was better than he thought, but 80% of them were the secret sons under Zhong Ba who ran away first, and then the yellow turban army was cleared of the scene in an instant when they saw their side, and then someone ran away, and the morale instantly plummeted, and they ran away. "Hold me steady. Steady." Chen Pai shouted loudly, and even swung his sword to kill several Yellow Turban soldiers, but he couldn't stop the defeated soldiers at all, but even his own personal soldiers fled, and finally even he himself was coerced away. He ordered Guan Yu, Zhong Fei, Zhao Yun, Tai Shizi, and Sun Guan to go all out to pursue the Yellow Turban defeated army until the Yellow Turban defeated army completely collapsed, and ordered Wu Dun in the rear to lead the Tunchen soldiers to gather the prisoners along the way, and dare to resist and kill without mercy. Military control is directly implemented wherever it passes, but anyone who makes trouble after surrendering will be killed. If necessary, a kill order is allowed, and the last place is eliminated. Chen Shi arranged for the herald beside him, and if nothing else, he would see the results in 5 days. Run, run, run. Chen Pai is dead, dying under the Yellow Turban general who seems to have been fooled by Zhong Ba, but it is obvious that the general overthinks his own ability, thinking that he can stabilize the situation after killing Chen Bei to take over the boss's rights. But as a result, he was lifted off his horse when he stopped the rout, and then was trampled into minced meat by more than 100,000 people. After 2 days, Zhong Ba can already see the floating clouds garrison, and his whole person has disappeared. See a lot, the cheekbones have become a lot obvious, the whole person seems to have drilled out of the soil. These 2 days are the most painful days he has experienced, leading more than 300,000 Yellow Turbans to flee. At the beginning, there were horses, but it didn't take long for the horses to run to death, and then there were people falling behind on the road, and people kept joining, and the team was bloated a lot in the process of falling behind and joining. But it was precisely because of this that it was not destroyed by the 5 lunatics behind. Whenever the other party took a short rest, Guan Yu's 5 people would turn into a meat-cutting knife to force the Yellow Turban thieves to run again, and then follow behind, forcing hundreds of thousands of Yellow Turbans to run desperately like a flock. As for the Yellow Turbans who fell behind, Wu Dun would deal with them, and now they have caught at least more than 100,000 Yellow Turbans who have fallen behind. And almost all of them are young and strong who continue to run in front. Seeing the floating clouds garrison, almost all the Yellow Turbans became excited, and their steps became more powerful, and at the same time, the attacks of Guan Yu and several others also became sharp, and they had already cut down several pieces of the Yellow Turban army. When the Yellow Turban army of the brigade came over, Fuyun discovered this situation, and he was a little wary and began to reorganize the troops as soon as possible, and then ordered his cadre Li Fang to lead 3,000 of his elite to intercept the other party. No matter what the other party was doing, it was always the right thing to do to stop it, and in Fuyun's opinion, even if it couldn't be stopped, it was enough to stop it. Stop coming. The Fuyun department had not yet been reorganized into troops, and the generals sent out directly followed in the footsteps of the thief general who was crippled by Zhong Ba, and were dismounted and trampled into meat paste, and the 3,000 Yellow Turban troops with weapons and no armor were also directly coerced and rolled upside down into the Fuyun department. More than 300,000 elite and strong defeated soldiers rushed up, and they couldn't see the front behind them, and the crowd of people just didn't give Fuyun a chance to disperse the vanguard of the Fuyun department, and directly rolled backwards, and the entire Fuyun department was in chaos, and then it didn't take long for the entire Fuyun department to be coerced in, running forward with the flow. This scene made Guan Yu and the others feel cold all over. The Yellow Turban has been defeated, and the floating cloud department has been dispersed by 400,000 defeated soldiers, so even if a large number of people fall behind when it comes to Huqian, the defeated soldiers will at least exceed 600,000, and even if Huqian is prepared early, the entire Huqian's troops will not be dispersed from being scattered to being coerced and fleeing, and it will not take more than a quarter of an hour. And the Yellow Turban is over. Zhong Ba led the defeated soldiers to run desperately. It has been 4 days. These 4 days he has eaten 2 meals. Other times he will be coerced to run. The entire Yellow Turban has completely become a bird of fright. As long as there is a little wind and grass, someone will run, and then a group of people will run, and finally hundreds of thousands of people will run with their lives. On the afternoon of the 4th day, Zhong Ba finally arrived at Huqian's camp, which could have been earlier, but Huqian's relocation of the camp led to some changes in the position. Zhong Ba ran a lot of roads to find Huqian's camp. For the dispersal of Huqian, Zhong Ba said that there was no pressure at all. The problem was that he had now begun to worry about how to stop. A quarter of an hour later, Huqian, who originally had 300,000 Yellow Turbans, was all coerced away, and Huqian was also kicked down by Zhong Ba and stepped on it, and almost 600,000 or 700,000 Yellow Turbans followed suit, and Huqian had been completely crushed into dust. Run, keep running. Zhong Ba ran around the circle desperately. The Yellow Turbans were completely unassertive, and were directly taken by Zhong Ba to run in Qingju, and people kept falling behind, and were surrendered by Wu Dun, who was following behind. In this long distance run, the team continued to shrink, running from Zhangqiu to Zibo, then from Zibo to Banyang, and finally running back to Zhangqiu, and all the 1 million Yellow Turbans were finished. Chapter 120: The Wise and Divine Commander. Chen Shi sat in the big tent waiting for Guan Yu's return, and after learning that the floating clouds were dispersed, Chen Shi was already relieved, Probably this kind of ultra-long running would lead to thousands or even nearly 10,000 people being trampled to death, but it was fortunate that the war could end so quickly, and the damage between the enemy and ourselves could be said to be fortunate. As for Fa Zheng's stunned look at the military newspaper coming from ahead, Chen Shi was too lazy to say anything. Such a situation would be stunned even if Guo Jiao was here, which was the so-called defeat like a mountain. After going crazy, dozens of Taishan soldiers dared to drive away thousands of Yellow Turban defeaters under the leadership of the team leader, and they were not worried that the Yellow Turbans would dare to turn their heads to attack. In the end, the Taishan soldiers were actually holding their breath and chasing the Yellow Turbans. They didn't feel that the Yellow Turbans in front of them were people. No matter how strong a group of sheep was, they were just meat under the knife, nibbling on a mouthful of air-dried chicken, drinking a mouthful of salty or salty, sweet or not sweet cold water. The Taishan soldiers carried knives to chase and cut the Yellow Turbans. However, no matter how miserable the Taishan soldiers are, at least they have stuttering, and there is no one behind them. While the Yellow Turbans are completely taken by Zhong Bie and the Secret Sons, chased by Guan Yu and others, and have to run under the threat of life, without food or water, they will be caught by the pursuers behind them. In this way, every time the Yellow Turban stops to rest for a while, there will be tens of thousands of exhausted Yellow Turban soldiers who will not be able to keep up with the next pace, and there will also be some Yellow Turban thieves who fall down and can no longer stand up. The sun at the end of April is already a little hot, and it is only a matter of time before the unbearable Yellow Turban collapses. As time passed, the Yellow Turbans fell on the side of the road one after another, and many of them brought down a large area of Yellow Turbans behind them after falling, and then the group of people did not stand up, until Wu Dun led the Tunshan soldiers to feed them a little salt water, and then drove them away with a whip. In this way, in the long journey from Zhangqiu to Zibo, as well as the encirclement and interception of the Taishan soldiers, more than 1 million Yellow Turbans, under the leadership of Shen Jiao, the new leader of the Yellow Turbans who were wise and martial, successfully broke through 600,000, and more than 400,000 Yellow Turbans who fell behind were captured by Wu Dun and all of the retreated Sun Guan, and rushed to the south of Zhangqiu Liqing, and this group of exhausted Yellow Turbans had no strength to resist at all. Later, during the long trek from Zibo to Banyang, more people fell behind due to hunger and exhaustion, but the wise and powerful Xian Zhou successfully led the strongest more than 100,000 Yellow Turbans to break out of the tributaries of the Zishire River. At this time, Zhong Bie had successfully established his own wise and martial appearance, and his Yellow Turbans had also adapted to this life of fleeing everywhere, and they also saw a glimmer of hope in the blindness, and their boss Xian Zhou was leading them to find a way out of the Yellow Turbans. What the hell does this bastard Chen Zichuan want to do? Zhong Bie, who had become black and thin, was sitting on a stone while resting, while scolding Chen Shi. There are only about 100,000 Yellow Turbans left. More than 1 million Yellow Turbans let you play as monkeys. And finally these more than 100,000 Yellow Turbans you have mercifully encircled and suppressed them, and I can rest. Is this difficult for you? Although he was scolding Chen Shi, Zhong Bie recognized Chen Shi's ability very much. But because Chen Shi was too young, it was impossible for Zhong Bie to upgrade to reverence and awe, and he could only be extremely envious. Speaking of which, the information from Chen Shi recently is a lot strange. There are many new Tunshan points that can be attacked in Zhong Bie's orders, and there are 3 or 4 Tunshan points built last year a little further away, relying on the food of those Tunshan points to let these 100,000 Yellow Turbans barely survive. But RAO is so that the food gap of the Yellow Turbans is still very large, and if it continues like this, it is only a matter of time before these hundreds of thousands of Yellow Turbans collapse. However, Zhong Bie's intuition told Zhong Bie that Chen Shi had been calculating something, otherwise according to the previous performance, he would not be allowed to attack the Tunshan point at all, and there was still a large number of Tunshan farmers in those Tunshan points, and in that case, Zhong Bie had no way to restrain his subordinates at all, so naturally the entire Tunshan point did not leave chickens and dogs. And not an inch of grass grew. General. A spy took a steamed bun and handed it to Zhong Bie, and a note was clearly visible inside. Finally wait for the new instructions. Zhong Bie was ecstatic, and if there was no instruction, he would worry about whether his wandering left and right would destroy Chen Shi's calculation, although he had no idea what Chen Shi was calculating. After reading it, Zhong Bie's face was as dark as the bottom of the pot. He admitted that the success rate of this plan was as high as 100%, even if it was debunked. Now it was exhausted, or according to Chen Shi's script to go down, the road behind was fixed. But do you want to be so excessive to give him a tombstone for this fake Yellow Turban leader? Do you Chen Zichuan want to be so excessive? Zhong Bie finally accepted Chen Shi's proposal with a wry smile, which can be regarded as a decent ending for the Yellow Turbans, and can also harvest the military and people's hearts of the Yellow Turbans, which has too many benefits for the long-term peace and stability of Mount Tai, which is not something Zhong Bie can refuse. After all, the credit in it is enough for him to write a big book in the merit book. The next morning, Chen Shi bathed in the sun, half squinted his eyes, stretched his waist, waved his cloak, turned around and looked at Fa Zheng with a playful face. Xiaoji, am I handsome? Fa Zhang didn't speak. He had already expected it since the floating cloud army was coerced and dispersed a few days ago, and then after the Qian army was washed away, his whole body wilted. Chen Shi had hit his self-confidence hard, and Fa Jing's own strategy was really a joke compared to the current situation. Chen Shi almost took 1/3 of Qingju and more than 1.4 million yellow turbans without bloodshed, and also erased all the hidden dangers in the previous Qingju Tunchen district with the help of the yellow turbans, and the entire Tunchen district once again regained stability, and all the sand in the middle was killed this time. As for the newly built Tunchen areas, they were all the heads of the yellow turban departments, and Chen Shi also killed them all by the hands of the yellow turbans led by Zong Ba, and then Zong Ba, who led the yellow turbans to break through and fight, bravely died for the survival of millions of yellow turbans. Taishan accepted the surrender of the yellow turbans and lifted the previous crazy military control system, and the military hearts of more than 1 million Qingju yellow turbans were all gathered. As for the more than 100,000 yellow turban young men who followed Zong Ba in the end, it can be said that they are the real elites of the yellow turbans this time, and with a little selection, they can be reorganized into an army under the training of Yu Jin, and even the selection of soldiers that needs to be carried out after that can be exempted.